If anyone could tune my banjo, that'd be appreciated for sure. All right, all right, all right. Let me take this off. That's it. That's it. That's the whole show. Goodbye. I'll see you guys later. Welcome to TheoryCraft, the show where we talk about video games sometimes and play different instruments every week because I can do whatever I want. It's my show. It's my show. It's my show. It's probably the only song I can play on banjo. I own a lot of instruments, can only play one of them, and I can't even play that one very well. But yeah, welcome. Episode 16. It's been a while. It's been about 3 weeks, exactly. Keep that. Yeah, keep that. It's been about 3 weeks. The last episode was an interview with Thorzane, which was pretty cool. I was really happy to be able to speak to Thorzane because so many of the things that he said were like things that you ever have that where someone says something and you're like, oh my god, I've thought that for a while, but I've never actually been able to put it into words or like sort of put it to use. But then you're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And that was sort of a lot of things that Thorzane said I really found I agreed with and have sort of thought in the back of my head, but not actually been able to verbalize in the past. So yeah, I thought that was very helpful for me. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out for sure. Go check it out. Yeah, and it's Human Day, and this is gonna be a wacky episode. This is gonna be a very wacky episode because it's gonna be the first time that I'm covering a strategy that I don't necessarily agree is the right strategy to do. But we're going to get into that a little bit more. So this is going to be a bit of an interesting strategy. It's even a strategy that I've said before in casts and commentary I don't think is good. Will I talk about Pally Rifles? Absolutely, I would love to talk about Pally Rifles if I had the replays. So if there was lots of Thorzane replays, or if I had replays of like Sock used to do it, Hawk used to do it, Infi did it a little bit. If I had replays like that in the current patch, I would love to do Paladin Rifles in the future. And I even thought about doing it this week, but there was no replays. And believe me, I looked at every replay. Every single replay. I watched a lot of replays. But yeah, this is a strategy that today I didn't really think was good, and I've said many, many times that I think it's actually bad. I even called it, I believe the last time I casted, I called it a build order loss, this strategy for Human, against the strategy of the race we're going to be going up against today. I called it a build order loss. I said those words, guys, but I guess I was just wrong. I don't know. Today's episode is going to be me trying to convince myself that this strat is good. So I'm going to be along with the ride with you guys, and I'm going to be trying to learn alongside with you and maybe convincing myself that this is a good idea. Because I didn't think it was, and I still don't necessarily think it is the best option, but maybe you guys can convince me, and maybe I'll convince myself throughout the 5 replays we're going to watch today. And I'm also going to show you guys the reasons why I thought that it was a bad strategy initially. But, you know, you guys shouldn't listen to me. You should listen to the top players. And that's what I'm going to try to do today as well. Because we have replays from top players doing the strategy that I thought was bad and making it work somehow. And who am I? Who am I? I don't have all the answers. I don't even have any answers necessarily. I just tell you what I see in replays. So we should listen to these top players. And that's going to be today's lesson, is always listen to people that are better than you at the thing you're trying to learn how to do a bit better. You know? You see? You see? All right, but first, let me get some tea in me. Let's go to the notepads. I'm going to talk about a couple other things first because I want to go over the schedule with you guys because it's been a little bit of a wacky month. We haven't had an episode for 2 weeks. Before that, we had the interview with Thorzane. And now we're sort of halfway through the month, and we're sort of off of our schedule. We were doing a 4-week schedule at the beginning to the end of the month, but now we're sort of messed up. We're messed up. This would normally be the first episode of the month, but we're doing it in the 3rd week of the month. So this is what the schedule is going to be. Let me show you guys. You want to see what the schedule is going to be? Right here. Boom. This is the schedule all the way through June. Let me erase this. This is too big. Whatever. 10 a.m. There we go. Boom. Today. What day is it today? It's May 20th. It's Human Day. Next week, we have an interview. It's 3 hours earlier. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central European Standard Time. Summertime, standard time. The interview next week is with... Actually, I did this with you guys last time. Who do you think the interview is with? If you had to guess, who's the interview with? Do we have any guesses? What kind of tea is it? Just green tea. Who's the interview with? Who's the interview with? I have 2 interviews lined up. I got this one next week, and I got one lined up for June, which I'm not going to announce yet because I don't know if it's confirmed. With Bebs. With Hitman. Sonic. Knopf. All very good. Cruncher. Grubby. I'm going to... Okay, keep it on the down low. I'm going to try to get Grubby to do an interview one of these days. I'm going to try. Okay, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until I have about a few interviews under my belt so that I could, like, check out these other interviews I did with, like, you know, Thorzane and stuff. And then I'm going to message him. I'd be like, hey, man, really appreciate it if you did an interview with me. I'm sure everyone would like to see it. And I'm sure everyone would like to see it, you know? He doesn't do a lot of interviews. So, yeah, I'm going to try to get Grubby. I'm going to try to get Grubby eventually, of course. Just not right away because that, you know, I only got one shot to ask him. I got one shot. Kiwikaki, Armin VB, Happy. I don't know if Happy will do an interview. That might be pushing it. But Grubby, I think, if I ask really nicely, maybe he'd do it. The interview next week is with Starshaped, which I'm really excited to talk to him because I just talked to Thorzane. And there's a lot of things. They've known each other for a long time. They're teammates in 2v2. They're both from the same region. They're both Swedish players, so I get to talk to them side by side and get a lot of, questions and answers in tangent with those 2 interviews. So that'll be really, really exciting. And Starshaped is also not a person that I've spoken to one-on-one before. I've only interacted with him via tournaments, casting tournaments that he's playing and stuff like that. He's always been very nice, and I've enjoyed talking to him for the little bit that I have, but I've never actually had a conversation with him. Everyone else that I've interviewed, Bidu, Todd, Thorzane, I've actually had many conversations with those people, but never with Starshaped, so it'll be interesting to sort of get his point of view on some things. And, of course, there's been a lot of hype around him recently with the whole Orc thing, switching to Orc, beating Happy almost in a best of 3, almost beating X-Lord in the DreamHack was what it was. So that'll be a pretty cool interview. Okay, I have a lot of questions to ask him, and I tell the story all the time about Starshaped, but the first time I heard about him was before the days of Discords and Gym Newbie League and War 3 Champions. You kids won't understand this, but there wasn't a lot of resources to learn from. There wasn't a lot of resources. There wasn't a lot of YouTube videos. There wasn't, you couldn't ask someone in the Discord what this build order was, so you had to go to forums. And there was one particular forum called WCR. Warcraft Replays. WCR. WC Replays. You may recognize the name or remember the name. A legendary site for the Warcraft scene. Essentially, like the gym Discord before the gym Discord, but even like bigger than that. It had all the replays on it. It was like the gym Discord mixed with War 3 info, mixed with like War 3 Champions Discord. It was everything put together. It was all on a forum. And when I was a young player in high school learning how to play the game, I wanted some resources to learn from because of course everyone does. I want to learn builds and I want to learn stuff like this. That I'm showing you guys. I wish there was something like this back then where somebody would just go through replays and be like, this is what I think they're doing, and here's the build order they're doing, and this is why I think it works. But there wasn't a lot of that back then. Nowadays there's much more because YouTube's a lot bigger and all that stuff. But you had to go to the forum and look at forum posts in text back in the day. And Starshaped did a guide on Rifle Caster. I don't even know what year this was in, but I remember looking at it in about 2012. And that was the first time I heard of Starshaped, was his Rifle Caster guide on WCR. And I'm gonna find it, and maybe I'll show it to you guys at some point before or during that interview. I'll bring it up. I'll have to find it when I do all my research. But Dan Mahoney, subscribed for 8 months, currently on a 2-month streak. Appreciate that. And Solani with the Prime for 49 months. He says Carson hype. Thank you guys both very much. I appreciate that. So that'll be the interview next week. There's a little bit of a primer for you guys. And then, of course, June 3rd will be Orc Day. June 10th will be Community Replay Review. And I hope those of you human players out there, what I'm going to show you guys today is going to be something a little bit new. of course, if you're not like a top human player, this might be something that you've actually never tried against Orc. So what I would recommend is you take what you learn here today, if you learn anything. I'll also publish all the replays that I'm going to be going over today, so you can go over them yourself and try to gather more information than I'm able to show you today. And I suggest you go try this strategy out. It's nothing too crazy, it's nothing too innovative, but it is very, very difficult. Go try it out. Send me the replay. I want to see it. Freeman, you genius, you. Yeah, it's really difficult. But go try it out. Send me the replay. Send me the replay of you failing, and we'll talk about it. You got a few weeks to work on it, so let's see it. Send me that. So that's on June 10th. I've already got a bunch of replays. Thank you guys for continuously sending them. Even when I take a couple weeks off of the shows, I still got people send me replays to my email and the Discord. So I appreciate that. June 17th, Undead Day. Then June 24th, we have the next interview I have lined up if all goes well. And then after that, we'll do Night Elf Day at the beginning of July. That's the schedule. It's getting a little bit wacky, but I'll try to keep you guys up to date if I ever mess it up or take a couple weeks off, stuff like that. All right. I'm glad to see in the chat that some people are already sort of getting what I'm hinting towards. And some people are saying that, some people have even been playing it, not at the top level. So I'm glad to hear it. All right. You guys ready for today's episode? You guys ready? Let's get rid of this. So we have 5 replays today. 5 replays. Some of them are very short. For reasons that I'm going to tell you right now. The name of today's episode, the title, is this: Defeating Farseer Headhunters, ... the Arduous way. What might that be? What do you guys think it is? Some people in the chat already got it. What do you think the strategy against Farseer Headhunters for human that I'm going to be going over today is? There's many different approaches. This has been a strategy. I did episode 13 on this strategy from the Orcs' perspective. Right? I covered it because Lynn showed us in March at the DreamHack Regional Finals this new 6 Headhunter build. Then you transition into Grunts with Shamans, and you get a 41 supply expansion, build a Witch Doctor, and you delay until you have that expansion up, and you creep very fast with the 6 Headhunters. It's very, very strong. And that's actually become... Since Lynn did it in March, it's become standard against human. How crazy is that? Lynn shows us a build 2 months ago in a tournament, and now everyone plays it. That's how good this guy is. So that's the build that every Orc player is pretty much doing currently. Variations of it slightly, but the Lynn version is still the best, in my opinion. So humans are really struggling against this, of course. Humans are trying to find a solution against this. There is not a consensus quite yet on what the best build order is. Nor do I know what the best build order is. I'm not here to tell you guys, this is what you should do. This is how you're going to beat it 100% of the time. Of course I'm clickbaiting you guys. What do you think I am? Of course I'm clickbaiting you. So I had that question in mind when I was planning the episode for today. I had the question in mind: how do you defeat Farseer Headhunters? What's the best way to do it? I have my opinions. I thought, okay, you 3-farm tech. This might be getting a little bit complicated if you're not a more advanced player, because I'm just saying build orders right now. You 3-farm tech, you get about 5-6 footmen, early defend after you tech with a tower as well. At tier 2, you go double Sanctum, and you around 40 supply expand with a Mountain King level 1.8 sort of thing. That's what I thought the best response was. That's what Cruncher did against Hitman at DreamHack recently. Hitman 3-0'd Cruncher. You could say Cruncher's a little bit out of shape, but that's what Cruncher did. He got 3-0'd. Many humans have been losing to Orc players doing this build order. You could also say there's an approach by Blade. Arguably the best human player in Europe currently. He goes Rifle Caster, Bolt Bash on the Mountain King, and just marches across the map and is very, very aggressive against the Headhunters and against the expansion attempt of the Orc player. 2 different approaches. I thought they were both good. I download a bunch of replays off of War 3 info. In fact, I download every single replay played by Fortitude, Sock, Chaemiko, Infi, and Hawk a little bit as well. Download those. And the three, if you were to pick out probably the three best of those 5 players, you'd probably say Infi, Sock, Chaemiko. And I was surprised what they were doing was a little bit different from what Hawk and Fortitude were doing. What they were doing every single time, as I went through replay after replay, like fast forwarding at 64 times speed, like, come on, I want to see like what I think is good against Farseer Headhunters. Why aren't they doing what I think is best? Because that's what I want to show you guys. I want to cherry pick replays and show you guys what I think is good and have the evidence there, you know, of Sock doing it. But I couldn't find any. I could only find these top human players, the best in the world, fast expanding. They fast expand every time against Orc. They just do it every time. So I was resistant at first. I thought, okay, I don't have to do human day against human against Orc. I'll just do it on a different matchup. I just won't do. That's was my mindset. I was like, I don't think this is a good style. Fast expanding against Farseer Headhunters. I've said that before in cast. I don't think this is good. So I just thought, okay, I'll just go download against Night Elf replays. I'll just do human against Night Elf. And then I was watching replays for human against Night Elf, human against Undead. I've already done human mirror, of course. And I was like, man, why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? I don't get it. I don't think it's good, but they're doing it. There has to be something there, right? Like, certainly, I'm not right. They have to, if anyone's correct, Infi, Sock, and Chaemiko have to be correct about this. And at least, you know, their attempts. They have to be the closest to correct if there isn't a perfect answer yet for this build. Free MMR incoming for Orcs. I do recommend you guys try this because I'll tell you why. But yeah, so I was very resistant, and then eventually I was like, okay, whatever, I'll do it. I'll do the fast expansion. I'll look at the replays. I'll look at the replays because I just like sort of, as soon as I saw the human was going for a fast expansion, I just closed the replay. That's how close-minded I am. I just closed the replay. I just moved on to the next one, looking for one base play against Farseer Headhunters because I was like, okay, they're just gonna lose in 6 minutes. Whatever. That's where I was at. That's kind of where I'm still at. But I decided to do today's episode on that build, on the fast expansion. And this should be cool because there is a lot of similarities between fast expanding against Orc and, of course, fast expanding against Night Elf and Undead, the two more common matchups to fast expo in. So for those of you that are lower level players, perhaps that don't fast expand a lot, that's a really common thing for human players. I played human for about a year just for fun, and I was very uncomfortable fast expanding, so I would just play one base in every matchup. Even against Undead, I would just play one base. So I hope for those of you lower level players, you'll be able to learn some general things about fast expanding here that you can take. And for those of you players that are already relatively comfortable fast expanding against Night Elf and Undead, maybe you can figure out some specific details about what these players are doing when they're expanding against Orc as opposed to these other races. Right? So there'll be something for everyone here, and I'd recommend you guys try it out. So, first things first, what are some of the strengths of fast expanding against Orc? I have 3. There's probably way more. I just quickly jotted these down before I went live. There's three big ones, I think, but there's probably way more. What are some advantages to fast expanding as opposed to playing one base against Orc? You should tell everyone what Infi told us is the solution. Oh, all right, yeah, a little bit. Okay. All right, yeah. Let me open Discord. Okay, so because I was struggling to find replays so much, as you guys type in the chat, and I will read out what everyone's saying is an advantage of fast expanding against Orc. So Bidu, I was messaging Bidu like, oh, I'm looking for replays over the past couple days. Like, oh, I'm really struggling. Everyone's just fast expanding. I don't think this is good. And Ricky's like, oh, I'll message Infi and see if he has any replays of playing one base against Farseer Headhunters. So he messages Infi. And what Infi says is, this is what Infi said, okay? He says, no, comma, tell them to change race. So, if we're really listening to the pros, then then I guess that's what Infi says. But of course, Infi is someone that off races quite a bit. So, not my words. See, I don't like talking about balance too much in this show. I do like to offer solutions as much as I can, not problems. But that's what Infi said. And I do try to get information from top players as much as I can about this too, because I'm of course not a top player. But okay, back to what some of the advantages of fast expanding against Orc are. Let's see what you guys said. See what you guys said. Eco lead, yes, very good. Expansion, yes, very good. Infinite defend footies, very good, German Gandalf, very good. Fast level 2, good. Infinite ability to buy items, good. Biggest strength is quick games. Yeah, quick games, so you get it over with very quickly. If you can defend it, more gold income later, obvious. Very good. Make them react to you controlling the game, good. I like that as well. Yeah. Agent, the question was, what are some of the advantages of fast expanding against Orc? Just in general. You pressure Orc. If it gets up, you could freely creep TC to level 3, but need to push, correct. Tanks! Early tier 2 pressure with NK. Keep them on one base, good defend. Yeah, right. 3 farm tech to have more footmen ASAP. Fast expo equal fast game, search next. Good. See, and those of you that are saying like, oh, it gets the game over way quicker, exactly the same opinion that I held and kind of still hold. But again, I couldn't find any replays of top humans not fast expanding, which is why we're here, which is why we are where we are. But there certainly are some advantages to it. Yeah, so I put down 3. And they're relatively obvious, but we can expand on these 3 and talk about them a bit more. So the main thing is these 3. Extra economy, forehead. Force the Orc out of comfort zone. And force game to late-ish. I wouldn't say late game. You're not getting to the 30-minute mark just because you expand. Similar to what Criplord does. Criplord's able to get the game to late pretty much consistently because it's very difficult to break their expansion and to harass it. But with human, you can't always force it to late game. But first things first. Extra economy. Forehead. Obviously. That's what you get out of an expansion. Yeah, what about disadvantages? We will talk about that. Yes. You get extra economy, but it's worth pointing out that generally, or no, not generally. Why don't we say always? On equal economy, humans better than Orc. They have better units, right? Orc, the reason Orc goes for a 41 supply expansion, and they have this whole strategy that works around them getting their expansion up safely, is because they feel they need the 2 bases to beat human. So of course, if human has the economic edge, or is even in economy, 2 base to 2 base, human's going to have the lead. Right? Similar to how undead would have the lead against human in equal economy. 1 base, 1 base. Undead has the advantage. That's why humans very often go for a fast expansion. And that's why also Criplord 2 base, 2 base, undead often has the advantage. Similar dynamic in Orc against human. So if you have the economic edge, you're generally in a pretty good position as human. All right, force the Orc out of the comfort zone. This is a point that I was talking to Hitman quite a bit about. And he was saying, I was asking him just so I knew, like, you know, what's the best way to deal with a fast expansion as an Orc player? I have my way of dealing with it, but I thought generally, like, what's the best way? What's the best way? And he told me pretty much no Orc other than Lyn is good against fast expansion. None of them know what they're doing other than Lyn. And every other Orc, he says, just sort of does random stuff against fast expansion, which is good for the human players out there because we're not going to be playing Lyn too often. I've never played Lyn before. I don't know if maybe you guys have played Lyn, but I've never played Lyn. So the fact that only Lyn, according to Hitman, has the correct best answer to fast expansion, and he's the only one actually doing it. Everyone else is doing different stuff. Fly, Soin, Focus, they're all doing different things most of the time. It's pretty good. So that means the players that we're meeting on ladder, the Orc players, certainly won't have a good idea of what to do. So it's good. It forces them out of their comfort zone. We can figure out all the exact details on how to fast expand and what we should be doing, what timings we should be hitting, what units we should go into. But the orc players on ladder are going to be expecting one base just like I am because I think it's the best build when I'm going up against a human with Farseer Headhunters. If I'm playing Farseer Headhunters, I'm up against a human. I'm not expecting them to fast expand because I don't think that's a good build. So I'm not even prepared for them to fast expand. So I'm totally out of my comfort zone once they do. I'm just sort of rolling with it and doing random things, which is more common than you would think for orc players against fast expansions. There's truly not a consensus on what the best build is against fast expansion from the orc side of things. But for human, there is a consensus on sort of generally how you're supposed to play the expansion against orc. And we're also going to be watching 3 different humans do very similar things against orc while fast expanding. So you force him out of his comfort zone. And forcing the game to late-ish. Well, of course, I've mentioned this in the first episode ever, which was Sock playing against Orc. Once you have a big wall of breakers, Tauren Chieftain not so strong anymore. Able to get to the late game as human, when you get high-level Mountain King, when you're able to get the heal scrolls, when you're able to get the wall of breakers, when you're able to retrain Blizzard, stuff like that, late game against Orc is better for human. If you're on equal economy and you're able to get to the game late, get all the things you need, human's good. Human's probably the best race if you're able to get to that late game. The reason why humans struggle so much is because they're generally weak in the early game and in the mid game. But if you're able to force the game to late, like many of the top humans of history have, other than maybe Sky, who was a bit of an outlier there, you're in a pretty good position. So what does an expansion do? Well, it can force you kind of to the late game, but not always. Make sense? So those are my 3 points. There's probably more. Probably more. Any questions? There are a lot of people typing in chat right now, so I can scroll up and read them. There's a lot of opinions on Farseer Headhunters against human. I knew this would be a spicy episode. So Farseer Firelord Tier 2 push, the expansion is a random reaction. I would say yes, because of all the replays I watched, not a single orc did that. Out of Focus, Lyn, Fly, Soen, Hitman. Out of those people. Not a single one of them did that build. Panda second, yes, 6 bones, that's very common. Human Expo shouldn't work against Headhunters. Headhunter build is very flexible, or can just switch to the best anti-fast Expo build they have. Okay, but what is the best anti-fast Expo build they have? Because again, I say, there isn't a consensus. Some orcs play Panda, some orcs play Tauren Chieftain second, some orcs play Shadowhunter second, some orcs play Headhunter Shaman, Grunt, some orcs play dual Bestiary Windriders, some orcs play dual Bestiary Raiders, some orcs go Firelord second apparently and Tower Rush the expansion, some orcs counter expand, some orcs don't, some orcs go tier 3 and then counter expand. Some orcs go Stomp on their Tauren Chieftain and creep level 3. Some orcs go Shockwave on their Tauren Chieftain and creep level 3 and then push. Some orcs creep their Panda level 3 and then push the expansion. These are all legitimate answers to the fast expand that I've seen in replays from top orcs. Again, I say there's no consensus on what to do. So again, I ask the question, what is the best response? Which there obviously is a best response. And Hitman says that Lyn has the best one. But the thing is, most orcs don't think that is. Most orcs have their own idea. For instance, when I play as an orc player against the fast expansion, I go two bestiaries with a Panda second, continued aggression, and I get 2 Windriders out of the bestiary, and then I transition into Mass Raiders. No counter expansion, full aggression. If I don't break the expansion, I leave the game. That's how I play personally. That's how I think the best way to play is, but that's not what most orcs do. Another solution is Tinker, right? Oh, I should allow that. Double Beast Raiders to force human to invest in defensive, eventually get tier 3 for counter expansion, leverage Raiders for map control to take creeps from human side of the map. Very good. Very good. That's very close to what Lyn does, but there are some differences. Lyn, for instance, doesn't go double beast raiders. He goes Spirit Lodge and gets a Witch Doctor out. But we're, of course, not going to be talking about the orc side of things today. We're going to be talking about the human side of things. So who cares what the orc does? We as the human players are just going to do our best to get our expansion up and then react accordingly to what our opponent is doing, right? Maybe it's worth in the future to do an episode on how Lyn deals with a fast expansion from human, but we're not going to be talking about that today. All right? In fact, we don't even have a Lyn replay from today because I'm limited on the replays I have. Didn't have any. Not a lot of Lyn games recently. A lot more fly games, a lot more focus games recently. So that's what we're going to be watching. But maybe in the future, worth an episode. All right. So those are the advantages. What are the disadvantages of fast expansion against orc? I know you guys know some disadvantages. What are the disadvantages? Of course, death loss, losing. All right, let's do losing, ... quickly. Map control loss, good. Peasant death, good. There's 3 right there. Lumber economy is messed up, which would be connected to peasant death, but sure, low lumber. Which then equals low tech, which then equals tech disadvantage, which then equals secondary hero level disadvantage. Right, yeah, headhunters can be very good at canceling towers, which makes it hard to play defensive. Headhunters good at canceling towers. Good. Low hero level. Yep, low hero level. Good. Lots of disadvantages, right? A lot of footmen die, no shields, which is again connected to the peasant death, which is connected to the low lumber economy because you don't have defend early. Yep. Being very map dependent, great, yeah. Map dependent. Good. Yeah, I will say about the map dependent thing, most often have I seen this on Northern Isles, Echo Isles, Last Refuge, and Concealed Hill. I've seen it on those 4 maps. You could argue, though, probably Tidehunter's doable. Autumn Leaves, I don't know. Autumn Leaves is a pretty good Farseer Headhunter map, so you could probably argue it's doable on 5 maps. Concealed Hill, you might say, what the hell, they're doing on a Concealed Hill, but yep. Have seen it on Concealed Hill be successful a couple of times. But yeah, it wouldn't work on Amazonia, for instance. Wouldn't have worked on Twisted Meadows. I don't think it'd work on Autumn Leaves, although there's probably an argument to be made there. What else am I missing? I don't know. Of course, not Turtle Rock. These are all maps that are sometimes in and out of the pool, but... Sealed Hill Immediate Expo is a bit of a cheese, I think. Yeah, I do think it is, but also there's the thing of the orc having to scout the orange camp immediately, and they're not close to the expansion, so you can get the entire expansion crapped, but you're still going to lose a lot of peasants. These humans that we're going to be watching today, they're all going to lose a lot of peasants. Believe you me. They're going to lose a lot of peasants, okay? They're not going to get these expansions up without losing peasants. And the first 2 replays we're going to watch, you guys will be happy to know, we're going to watch humans lose. And it's going to vindicate your guys' point of view, right, on this. Because, again, I want to stress the point that this is a strategy that I did not think was good until I saw tons of replays of top humans doing it. So I'm going to show you guys why I thought. I'm going to show you guys why I thought this was a bad strat. I'm going to show you 2 replays of examples of 2 different counters from the orc. One is going to be mass aggression from the orc player. Just continue pushing, continue killing peasants, try to end the game early. Another is going to be the orc playing a slow macro methodical game where they sort of bully the human off creep camps. And these are 2 different ways that orc players typically try to defeat the fast expansion. And I'm going to show you 2 examples of humans losing games to these orc reactions. And I'll show you why I thought it was bad initially. That's what we're going to watch. And then we're going to watch 3 replays of 3 different humans doing very well against Orc with fast expansions. Well is, I guess, subjective. Okay. Is there anything else? That might be everything. Yeah, we got 5 replays. Gonna bang them out. Don't know if there's anything else. Is there any questions? You guys have any questions? This is supposed to be a short intro. 35 minutes. Look at us go. We're focused on human versus orc matchup. Yes, we are. I have a question for you guys that I want to see if anyone knows the answer to before we start. If Orc goes Farseer Headhunter 2 Burrow Tech, what is the earliest that Orc can have 2 Wind Riders out? What is the earliest? Does anyone know? You can say in-game time, in-game timer via the clock, the sundial, or you can just say literal seconds in-game. Does anyone know? Because those of you trying to fast expand against Orc, you have to know this information. Good. Many people got it. Yeah, it's I'm talking Farseer Headhunter 2 Burrow Tech, standard, 6 minutes and 45 seconds. 6 minutes and 45 seconds, not straight tech Wind Riders. 2 Burrow Tech Farseer Headhunters. And that's when they come out of the bestiary, then they have to run across the map. So yeah, but 7 minutes. That's going to be important. That's going to be important for these replays. Yeah, not fastest tech, Sonny. But of course, it's important to know that as well, if it is fastest tech. Okay. So, replay 1 will be Sock against Focus on Last Refuge. And it's going to be a sad day for the humans. All right, you guys ready? You guys ready? Here we go. Let's jump into game 1. Or replay 1, rather. Here we go. All right, here is Sock in the bottom left. And Focus in the top right. I'm not ready. This is Last Refuge. Again, I'll reinstate that I think probably Echo Isles, Last Refuge, and Northern Isles are the 3 best maps for this strategy. And then you could probably make an argument that this isn't the best strategy on the other maps. Hello. So the cool thing about this strat is that it looks very standard from the start. If the Orc scouts your base, which he will because you bet he's going to run across the map with a Farseer most of the time. Actually, not in this game. He's going to scout your base and he's going to see, oh, he's built 3 farms, you know, he doesn't have a tower yet, he's got the standard amount of peasants. It kind of looks like he might be playing 1 base. So the Orc kind of has to confirm the 4th farm for if it's a fast expansion or not. So you can kind of play a little bit of trickery, which is why I think, similar to that episode I did on Laliat, saying where, you know, when you're a Night Elf player, being dynamic is very good because you keep your opponent guessing and it strengthens all the other strategies you can do. Being dynamic with human and being able to fast expand as well as play 1 base tech makes all the strategies stronger. So of course Sock is very capable of playing 1 base. I already did an episode on him playing 1 base against Orc, but he's also capable of playing fast expansion. And that's why he's a great player, because he's not unidimensional. Right? So we're going to see a Farseer come out. Little bit of a different build order from Focus. Maybe if we do an episode on how you're supposed to counter this as the Orc, we'll talk about this. But a little bit of a different build order. Pulls the mercenary camp. And he's going to go for a very aggressive creep right away, which he's going to get away with. Are farm scouts worth it? I think, yeah, I don't think putting a farm right here, I think it's totally cool. I think it's a stylistic choice, and you should absolutely do it. I think it's great. I think it's great. I got no issues with it. I don't think there's any huge downsides to it. Picks up Priest. Gets Robe of the Magi, probably the best item. Maybe Sobi Mask. Yeah, this is probably the best item you could get there. Maybe like Bone Chimes. Robe of the Magi is extremely good, though. Extremely good in this position. For reasons that we're going to talk more in depth about probably in Replay 4. And he's going to get Mantle. Also, look at that Archmage. Incredible. And Focus, doing something a bit different. He actually went 1 Grunt, and now he's going into Headhunters. And he crept level 2. We're going to see how this works out for him, though. So 4th farm coming up. Militia are called to the expansion. He only called 4 because his 5th is building that farm. Kind of a cool little detail from Sock. He's creeping it in front of the Farseer, but actually not struggling that much. Level 3 on the Archmage. And I don't think the Farseer got a single creep there. Now he's actually going to lose a Grunt. Notice the health on the Archmage, though. This is worth talking about. Always be looking at the health on the Archmage as an indicator of what sort of position you're in for the human. If your Archmage is very healthy and their Farseer is very low, chances are you're winning the game in the early game as the human player. Even if it's 1 base. If it's expansion or 1 base, the health on your units, the health on your Archmage, is generally an indicator of what position you're in. He could be losing 4 peasants right now. If his Archmage is full health, he's still in a good spot. Tower gets canceled. Headhunters are pretty good at that, right?
Player's forces are under attack.
He's got mercenaries. He's got footmen. He's got level 3 Archmage. A couple of headhunters are getting low. And his Archmage is low. He's got to build a shop eventually, but of course, he needs to get the expansion up. Worth noting, also, this is going to be a common thread, which isn't always true against, for instance, Night Elf. When you fast expand, the human players are always going to immediately power build an Arcane Tower. And then after that Arcane Tower, they're going to build their expansion. In this case, the Arcane Tower got canceled by the Headhunters, but Sock still went for an immediate Arcane Tower because you should. You're against a Farseer, you're against Headhunters, you need to deal with this Farseer, get him out of your face. So they're always going to try to prioritize getting this tower up, but in this case, it got canceled.
A player's forces are under attack.
A lot going on. 1 Headhunter is going to fall, but a couple of Footmen have fallen as well. Looks like this game is going well. Yeah, it does look like it's going pretty well, right? But the Archmage is still extremely low this whole time. The Priest deals with those Wolves. Could go back and heal up that Archmage. 2 Footmen low as well. So in this game, the Peasants have been very safe, but the units in the Archmage haven't. Look at the damage on these units, right? So yeah, he hasn't lost a bunch of Peasant Sock, but he's lost a lot of health. Level 3 on the Farseer now. Kills 2 Headhunters, though. Certainly not bad at all. The expansion's going to be up in a second. Yes, when you dispel something, you do get experience for it. Yep. Panda second. The best way to play against this, arguably. Some people would say that. Spirit Lodge. The best way to play against this. Some people would say, who knows? I don't know. Panda comes in. There's still Headhunters. This tower could be canceled by the heroes and a Headhunter. Probably will be, in fact. And Sock, if he gets this tower up, he's not in a terrible position. He's even going to kill a 3rd Headhunter. But his Archmage's still low. Still low HP, so we can't actually bring it back in or it's just going to start getting right-clicked. So he has no real good way of defending these Peasants. So although Focus didn't focus on the Peasants early, now because he did all this damage to the Archmage early, Sock isn't in a position to defend his Peasants. So we're going to see this from human players. They're going to not care as much about keeping their Peasants safe. They're going to care more about keeping their units and their Archmage safe. Whereas in this case, Sock kind of did the inverse, and now look, it doesn't even matter. All of his Peasants are dead anyway. Can we get a Peasant kill counter? I should have kept track. Because it's probably going to be about 100 today, over 5 replays. Now he's healing up his Archmage, but all the Peasants at the expansion are dead. The Farseer is level 3. Tech ain't started. There's not really any Lumber Peasants, and the Shamans are coming out, right? Focusing Headhunters is your best bet. We're going to talk about that as we get later in the replays. Yeah, and the AM's been +9 this whole time, so the right clicks have really been missing. Now the Headhunters and the Wolves are killing more peasants. Continue that counter, guys. This is about 10 at the expansion now. Panda level 2. Mini Gamba with the Prime for 53 months. Thank you very much, man. 53 months, Jesus. Water Elementals are going to fall. And GG's going to be called. And you can imagine me, as somebody who casts games most often, if I see a game like that, I'm thinking, why the hell is he fast expanding against this? He just got dumpstered. He got dummied. You can imagine why many people have the opinion that this is just a terrible strategy against Farsuit Headhunters. You can imagine. And that's why I'm showing you guys these replays, to show you how I arrived at this opinion. So we're going to watch one more replay now. So that was the very aggressive style of countering the fast expansion of human. Now we're going to look at the more conservative. This was what I've called the Lin style of dealing with the fast expansion from human. There's going to be a little bit of a, shall we say, a skill differential in this game. But the replay is just an example to show you guys the style that you might run into as the human player from the orc. And how you might lose. And some mistakes maybe you'll make. So a little bit of a skill differential, but it's a very good example of what the orc's going to do to own you. Alright, so here's replay 2. This will be a Hitman replay against a Australian player named Bowt. A very good player. A very good player, but certainly not the caliber of Hitman. Right? But still a very good player who knows very well. He plays it pretty much exactly as every other top human does, as Sok and Chaemiko. But there are, of course, some mistakes. And Hitman plays pretty much a perfect game. Hey, Scuzzy McHaggis, he says, love the TheoryCraft series. Carson, looking forward to these every week. I appreciate that. Tier 1 for 4 months. Thank you very much. So here's replay 2. This will be on Echo Isles. Bowt against Hitman. And here we go. And here's Bowt in the top right on Echo Isles, and here's Hitman in the top left. And Hitman actually sent me this replay to show me what he thinks is the best way to counter this. The fast expansion from human. This is, in Hitman's opinion, the best way, and I believe this is what Lin does as well to counter the fast expansion. But we're going to see all the same things from Bowt as we saw from Sok in the last game. Essentially. No, yeah, right? This is just a ladder game, right? Just a ladder game. Just War 3 champions. So there's not big stakes here. They're just chilling. Oh, this is replay 2. There we go. And again, if you were to scout this base as the orc player early on, say, it would look pretty standard. The one kind of telltale sign here that would maybe give it away a bit is the base isn't actually open, which would be, it'd be very common for it to be open if it was like a standard rifle caster game with a fast tech, right? And we'll see this from like players Sok and Chaemiko and Infi. They'll very often keep their base open. What's the takeaway from last game? Well, we're going to talk about that when we get into the final 3 replays. Alright, so immediate expansion. We see this often on maps like Concealed Hill and Echo Isles. You go for the immediate expansion. You can go for the mercenary camps, but I do think going for that immediate expansion is really good. Casey Jones of Doom gifted a sub to Tyloo13. Thank you very much. So immediate expansion, 5 militia called. No 4th farm yet because the expansion is being crept so early. And he gets Claws of Attack. Oh, it's actually only 4 militia called. But the 5th is probably going to be coming here soon. Again, like I mentioned before, prioritize power building this tower as early as possible. That's what we're going to see Bowt do.
Player's forces
And he's trying to keep his Archmage safe. Right, he's running it away. You don't want to take right clicks. See, even his peasants are exposed right now, but he's running the Archmage away. Right, he could lose a couple of peasants here, but what's important is he keeps his Archmage healthy. And notice, every time Hitman has the opportunity to, he's just attacking that Archmage because he knows. But tower's going to get up, uncancelled. Should see a 4th farm coming up. There's the 4th farm. Arcane Tower in the base to play it safe. So he's trying to get an Arcane Tower in both bases, so he's very safe.
Player's forces are under attack.
Archmage is much healthier than Sox was last game, so you could, again, if I'm gauging this early game based on health of the units, I would say Bowt's in a better position this game than Sock was last. But some of his footmen are getting hurt, but the tower's up now. Once the tower's safely up, you can get your expansion. We're still going to need 2 peasants to be transferred, though. And this is why it can be sometimes tricky to deal with Farseer Headhunters, because they can kite you all day. So I'd call this a mistake, probably overcommitting here. What I think would be a good play for Bowt here, instead of committing in for these Headhunters, he of course thought he could get this kill. But what I think would have been a better play is just to fight Hitman until he was about here, and then just run back to the tower. Right? And when Hitman starts to turn around to try to start attacking the footmen, to just run back. All you're trying to do here is get the Headhunters out of your face, essentially. You don't have to fight, you don't even have to get really that many kills. You just have to get them out of your face, and then what can you do when Hitman runs away? Well, you can just pull this green camp and start creeping it. Right? And you're still keeping your expansion safe. Whereas in this case, Bowt is really committing in. He actually wants to get Headhunter kills, but instead he's just losing footmen, and he's taking a lot of damage on his footmen. What's this going to translate into? Well, he has no ability to later on defend the expansion. So a similar mistake that Sock made, he took too much damage on his units. Footman dying, another footman gonna die. And again, still committing because he thinks he can get these kills, which maybe he'll get one, but now the expansion's coming up.
Player's forces are under attack.
A little bit of a mistake, not power building there, but that's all right. One thing we're going to keep an eye on, too, when we watch Sock, Chaemiko, and Infi play this afterwards, is we're going to be keeping an eye on the Town Hall for the peasant macro. Something that's very cool about the fast expansion play of Human in general is there's always things you can improve on. There's top players that consistently mess up things like forgetting to build footmen, forgetting to build peasants. And there's been a couple cycles that have been missed here. You could say that his gold's low right now, yeah, but he just built 2 footmen. But he could have had a couple more peasants. What does this allow you to do? We're going to see, I believe it's Sock in the future. He's able in this position to call militia to defend this. But in this position, Bowt, he's forgotten a couple of peasant cycles. Right, it's worth noting. We're going to keep an eye on players, especially like Infi, macroing their peasants. It's a very, very big deal that you consistently see human players mess up. Sock didn't build an Arcane Tower in his main yet. You could argue that's because it was a different map, though, as well. Your main base is much more exposed on Echo Isles than it is on Last Refuge, being in between, like, 2 massive choke points, easily scoutable, stuff like that. More foot falling, but a couple of headers are still low, but there hasn't actually been a single kill yet. But the expansion's up. What do we see when the expansion's up? We're going to typically see a lumber mill once your expansion's up. And it's getting, as you can see to the top, what did we say earlier? Around 7 minutes, you can have the first Wind Riders out of the Orc. We're going to see a guard tower here, and a guard tower here, and also a lumber mill very typically around this point. After you get the expansion up, you want to get that lumber mill up very early, and get a guard tower in each base because of the chance for there to be a Wind Rider in your base. It's going to be very common. Somebody asked, when do you stop producing peasants? Typically, we'll see humans get up about 12 peasants. They'll get like 3 at their expansion, and then normally about 9 in their main base. We're going to see that's a mistake from Bowt this game, actually. He's only going to get 8 in total, but typically around 12. Sometimes you see humans get 14, which I think is a bit much, but yeah, around 12 is probably the sweet spot. We see a Torn Chieftain and just creeping up for Hitman, and Bowt trying to defend his base. He's got a decent number of footmen now, though, so he could get some creeping done himself. And the tech is coming through. Lumber mill coming through. This is late, though, right? There could be a Wind Rider already in his main base. He's got an Arcane Tower, of course, but there could be a Wind Rider or 2 in his main base already at this timing. So slight error again, but that's all right. Defend is online. And this is a position where you can kind of start fighting the Orc a little bit, especially with the claws. Although this is going to be an error. A little bit overcommitting. Yet again, overcommitting for kills, getting a little greedy. Forced into the invul, and again, the Archmage is stuck on very low hit points, right? Let's take a look at what he's macroing right now. See, a little late on a couple of things, but these are still important things to mention, right? Gonna have a guard tower in this base, gonna have a guard tower in this base. These both should be upgraded already, however. And also another thing we're gonna see very commonly, blacksmith right here. And you're gonna see this in the next replays. You're gonna see people do this right away. Right? Let's see a blacksmith right here.
A player's forces are under attack.
Worth noting, Hitman is not being over-aggressive. He's instead playing a macro game. So we need to be scouting for potential cancels if we think our opponent is counter-expanding. Worth noting that an Orc's counter-expansion takes 2.5 minutes. So it is very cancelable if you're given the space to do so. And of course, it's much easier to cancel it if you're able to get the space to get level 3 Archmage as well. So these should be on your list of goals in the early game. If you're able to safely creep Archmage level 3, we saw Bowt getting very aggressive on Hitman. He was trying to fight him over this camp. He was trying to kill headhunters over here. But instead, if Bowt just accepted the fact that Hitman was going to steal some camps away and maybe crept a green camp here, crept a green camp here, tried to get level 3 Archmage and tried to heal up, he would have had very much the opportunity to run across the map and go for a cancel here. But because he's only level 2 Archmage, because he was fighting and he's low hit points on his Archmage this whole time, he has no opportunity to go for cancels on the Great Hall. Right? These are mistakes.
A player's forces are under attack. Is under siege.
Again, going for a creep jack on a camp that he's probably not going to be able to do much damage. Maybe he'll get 1 headhunter kill, but this is all giving Hitman time to get his expansion up, which is, in most of the time, very cancelable. Should be. What if I've lost my footmen? Could produce 1 as a scout still make sense? Yeah, I would say you can consistently keep building footmen as you lose them until you hit around tier 2. And when you hit around tier 2, we're going to see very often we're going to see Blood Mage. Mountain King can be built as well, but Blood Mage is good in cases against, say, Raiders, because you can banish the Raiders and stop the hit and run. It's also very good against Panda, because you can siphon the Panda and there's no aura behind it, so a Panda without mana is essentially a big grunt. But it's still good against TC, of course, too. The TC has to get in range to get stomped. So Blood Mage is really good, and you have Siphon immediately, and you can also get extra watered elementals if you are on level 3. So Blood Mage is the most common second hero with a fast expansion, although Mountain King is also used quite often, too. We also should see a Blacksmith. We don't actually see... Okay, we saw it trying to get built here. This should have been built earlier, like I said. We'll typically see a blacksmith get up, and then we're going to see if Bowt can afford it. He's going to try to get 2 arcane sanctums up. Then he's going to be pumping rifles, breakers, and casters with the blood mage. Right? That's what he's going to macro into. And this is pretty much always what the humans go into. No tier 3 griffin stuff. Not really workshops for mortar teams. They just get 2 arcane sanctums, rifle, breaker, priest, sork. All the time. All the time. But again, Hitman has his expansion up, not canceled, and now it cannot be killed either. Because Bowt has been... He's been aggressive in places where he's been trying to stop creeps from Hitman, but he hasn't been aggressive in places where he's been trying to stop things like the Great Hall, or maybe like killing burrows, or maybe canceling tech. He's actually been going for fights instead of going for more economical plays with his footman, with his archmage, right? And now Hitman's in a position where he has a strong army and has his expansion up. Blood mage out. No level 3 archmage, however, though, but you can creep this green camp or something. And this is what can happen. The orc is stronger than you, so they start stealing all your creep camps away from you. And you're stuck on low levels, right? How can you stop this from happening? Well, you certainly can't win a fight, so you can stop this from happening by pressuring their base, by canceling their expansion. But in this case, Bowt tried to take fights that he could not win. This allows Hitman to then win those fights, like he just did here, killing those footmen, those 2 footmen, and then just stealing away a creep camp right after. And this results in the human being over-defensive, and the orc stealing away all their creep camps, while the human sits here and tries to creep green camps. The creeps that Bowt has crept this game, 1, 2, 3 green camps, and the expansion. That's it. Hitman's gotten everything else on the map. He's even got some left over on his side.
Player's forces are under attack.
Yeah, Gandalf, we're pointing out the errors that the human is making and what the orc is trying to do to counter the expansion. That's the point of these 2 replays. And now it's pretty much over, right? All the creeps have been taken, the orc has an expansion, and we can't really get our tech up, and we haven't delayed their 2 base economy at all, or their hero levels. And we're soon going to see the GG. And there's GG. Alright. So there's 2 different areas in which the orc is going to try to counter. The point for these replays is to show that there's different ways for the orc to counter this and different things, because when our opponent is trying to counter things in different ways, we have to be ready for different ways. We have to be ready for the Wind Riders. We also have to be wary that they might try to get an expansion up that we have to cancel. We might also have to be wary that they might be playing very slow and methodical, trying to steal away our creep camps. And we also have to be wary that they might be very aggressive with things like mass raiders. These are all things we have to react to and be ready for as the human, which is why I'm showing you 2 different ways in which the human can lose. Right? And we're going to see these sort of things, the orc trying these sorts of things, in the next 3 replays. In the next 3 replays. Makes sense? Any questions? People are freaking out in the chat. Alright, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Be right back. Alright, we're back. So what did we learn from those 2 games? Because people were freaking out that I was showing human losing. Oh my god, I can't believe human loses games. What did we learn? What did we learn? Well, we learned how we can lose. Let's write it out. How can we lose? How can we lose, guys? Well, for first things first, the first thing we mentioned was Archmage plus Footy health. Right? There's no delay, by the way. That the bot is wrong. Hi, Flame. How you doing? Archmage and footy health. Very important. It's not just important with a fast expansion. Worth noting, it's very important always against Orc. Your Archmage health is more important than health on any of their units. If you trade 1-for-1 hits, if you sit there, your Archmage attacking their Farseer, the human is losing that exchange. Your Archmage health is the highest on the totem pole of things to be conservative with. Right? And then footies after that. What else did we learn? Well, things we have to be ready for. We have to be ready for counter expansions. We need to be ready to make plays to go for cancels on counter expansions if the Orc is going for that. Right? And so we need to be scouting for that. Somebody mentioned building an extra footman to scout for that, right? We also need to be ready for Wind Riders. Around 7 minutes. So we're going to see 2 guard towers. One in the main base, one at the expansion. In case there's 2 base Wind Riders, because we can't always scout if it's 2 bestiaries or not at the perfect time. We just kind of have to be ready for it. All right, towers in time, yeah, for sure. What else do we have to be ready for? There was something else. We have to be ready for hit and run, of course. What do I mean by being ready for hit and run? Well, I mean having a very specific, I call it Sim City, at both your main base and your expansion, to be ready for raider run-bys, because raiders are a very common way of dealing with the fast expansion. So you need to build your expansion thinking of the future in which there might be raiders trying to play hit and run, which we're going to see a lot of in Replay 3, by the way. We're going to see a lot of that. And we need to be looking for ways to pressure the Orc without taking direct fights. Was that all going to fit? Here, I'll do that. We need to be able to pressure the Orc without taking direct fights. Ideally, it's not always going to work out that way. And sometimes we might be able to trade actually decently. But what do I mean by pressure the Orc? I mean you can cancel tier 2 buildings, you can kill burrows, you can cancel their expansion, but you're not necessarily going to be able to take direct fights early until you have defend. That's what I mean by pressuring the Orc. You're not going to be able to win a fight until you have tier 2. You can't just attack. Like, that's something that humans do all the time. Like, especially against undead. They have, like, 8 footmen. And then they just take a fight against a tier 3 undead in the middle of the map and go, I can't believe I lost. Well, it's because you just attacked into tier 3 tri-hero undead with 8 footmen and a level 3 archmage. And just suicided all your footmen. Not something you see Infi, Sock, Chaemiko do too often. It's just suicide all their footmen. Which is something worth thinking about. And also one thing we should be thinking about is trying to get level 3 AM if we can. Right? So there's a bunch of things we learned from those 2 replays that we can try to improve upon. These are things that at least one of those players messed up. You know, between the 2 of them, they made all these mistakes, right? They didn't die to Wind Riders, but we saw in replay 2 the guard towers being late so that they could have died to Wind Riders. What's up? How you doing? Alright, now, nobody be afraid. We're gonna watch Human win now, guys, okay? Gonna watch Human win. Alright. First mistake making Archmage. What's up, AKM? Yes, guys, I understand there's lots of different opinions on what the best build for the human is and what the best way for Orc to react to a fast expansion from human. I'm not saying this is the best way to beat Farseer Headhunters, nor am I saying that what the Orc is doing in these replays is the best way to beat the fast expansion. I'm merely showing you what I found from watching every single replay on War 3 info over the last week of all the top human players in the world. I downloaded every single Romantic, Sock, Chaemiko, Infi, and Hawk replay. I watched every single one of them. And the majority of them, they were fast expanding. That's what I'm showing you guys, okay? There's many different opinions on what the best build is. but I'm just showing you what my research showed me. I'm not making any value judgments on these strategies. I'm just literally showing you what I found when I watched all these replays. All right, here we go. Replay 3. Here is Sock in the bottom left and a new Orc player. Fly. It's Fly. In the top right. Again, last Refuge, we've seen the same spawns before. We've seen Sock lose on this map against Focus. Let's look at what he does a bit differently this time to be more successful with. That being a little to the left. All right. Base open. We'll probably see Sock go for a little bit of a different creep route this time. We saw one thing that I liked from the replay on Echo Isles was the immediate expansion creep. We see that sometimes on Concealed Hill as well. But we'll see what the creep route is from Sock this time. Peon Scout. We all know this peon very well. What is this peon for from the Orc? This is very common on Echo Isles as well as Last Refuge. Trying to stop the human player from getting the priest. If they get the priest, they're able to deal with the wolves. So this is very standard from the Orc. Nothing new. We're probably going to see a footman march over there as well to try to stop this peon from stealing the priest. Or try to fight the peon, rather. And we're going to see. This is how you deal with it. I think this is a little mistake. So this is, we'll mention, this is a very complicated exchange. There is a way in which the human's able to still get the priest a lot of the time. And it requires them sending, I think, a militia earlier than this with this same footman movement. I believe is what it is. But in this case, Sock is going to get the pull successfully, but then Fly is going to get the priest. But we're going to see, even though the peon's here, the footman is still going to get the pull. But I believe this is a mistake from Fly. It's very complicated and confusing. I'm not sure the best way for the human to deal with this or for the Orc to 100% stop this. But there is players, Romantic comes to mind, or Fortitude rather, who pretty much is always able to get the priest even if there's a peon here. Right? But we're going to see here, watch the footman. He's going to get the pull successfully, but Fly's still going to be able to steal the priest, but the pull is still going to go perfectly. The peon does not stop the foot from getting the pull. Check this out. Interesting little exchange. Not a make it or break it move in this game, but pretty cool, right? Everything's gone. Everything's gone. The peon did not stop it. The peon maybe could have attacked there, which is why I say I think Fly made an error to let that happen, but Fly still gets the priest. Kind of neat, right? Kind of neat. Priest takes a lot of damage, but Fly gets away, and at the same time he's creeping the green camp. Notice Fly going for damage on the Archmage. He had a bunch of peasants in front of him, but he still got every hit on the Archmage he possibly could.
A player's forces are under attack.
Sock did what he could to keep the Archmage as healthy as possible. And he's just going to put damage on the Farseer. This footman was chasing the priest, but it did not get the kill because a headhunter met up with it. And notice again, like I mentioned the first replay, the wolves were in the base. What do they see? They see 1, 2 farms. Right? It's 3 farms, sorry. They see 3 farms, which is standard, right? They don't see a 4th farm. And how many peasants do they see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All things are standard. So at this point, when Fly scouts the main base, he doesn't know what the build is. He's probably assuming it'll be attack. He can also be assuming it's a fast expansion because it's very common from Sock, but you still don't know what it's going to be when the Orc scouts here, right? It looks standard, regardless. So it's not as though Fly This could be anything. This could be anything, right?
A player's forces are under attack.
And then militia called. Fourth farm goes down. And still flies in the dark here. And he's creeping. And the expansion is going to start to be crept around nighttime. A little bit late than we typically see it, but still, this is the safest way to creep it. Wait for nighttime, and then you go for it. There's level 2. Illusions are a pretty good item. But watch how Sock deals with this. Just runs to the back. Just runs to the back. Pretty neat. Okay, what are these peasants going to build first, guys? Well, of course, they're going to power build an arcane tower when possible. Notice, every opportunity Sock has, he of course was attacking the priest because it was very far forward, but other than that, every opportunity Sock has had, he's been trying to put damage on the Farseer. Why is this? Well, if the Farseer is not around, the Headhunters cannot fight the Footman and the Archmage. The Farseer has to be here to be able to bully these Footmen, right? Or else the Archmage is going to get attacks off on them. So if you're able to damage the Farseer with keeping your Archmage healthy still, you're in a very good position as the human, right? And look how damaged the Farseer is. Now if the Footmen stick around, or the Headhunters stick around here with the Priests, these Footmen and the Archmage, more importantly the Archmage, is just going to kill all of them. And look how healthy the Archmage is. Remember when I said we can judge how well the early game is going for the human based on the health of the Footman and the Archmage? Well, look at it. Yeah, all the Headhunters are healthy. Yeah, maybe we're going to lose a couple of peasants to wolves. But look at the Farseer, and look at our Archmage. Priest lives, though. And the Footmen are chasing the Farseer. And yeah, we're losing some peasants, but it's alright. Remember when I said before that macroing peasants cleanly? Notice, peasant about to be finished. Will allow you to call some extra militia? Well, that's what Sock's doing right here. He's actually going to get a Headhunter for it. His lumber's not the best, but he's been able to get the Arcane Tower up on time, and now he's able to power build the expansion, and he's got enough economy to do it. And some peasants fell. I believe 2 peasants fell here, but it's not the end of the world. This fly's got to go back and heal. And notice the health on the Archmage. The Footmen are a little bit damaged, but the health on the Archmage is always most important here. Continuing to build peasants. He's not really messing up. Let's see how many peasants he has on lumber. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 already. And he had 6 at the expansion, which he lost 2 of. That's very good peasant macro, right? And he's going to continue to build them. He's probably going to build 1 more from here and 3 more from the expansion, making a total of 12 is generally what you go for. And it's nice to have peasants at your expansion, of course, in every matchup. Because you want to be able to build buildings here. You want to get your blacksmith. You want to be able to get farms, towers. So having 3 or 4 peasants sometimes mining lumber at your expansion is great so that you can actually make the buildings you need. And yeah, more peasants are going to die. It's all right. Notice damage on the Farseer. Footman immediately on the Farseer. He's going for the priest because it was far forward. Militia are called. And maybe you could argue this is a little bit of an overcommitment going this far for Sock. But he's starting to back away now. I would say maybe he could have stopped right here, but he went a little bit further and took a little bit extra damage on his Footman, but still, the expansion's safe, and notice what he does. He doesn't think, like, you could win this fight as the human. Look, low grunt, another grunt, Headhunters. Farseer's half health. You could almost win this fight with this many footmen with the militia, but notice Sock doesn't run all the way into the middle of the map, suicide 5 footmen, and they'll go, oh my god, what am I supposed to do? It's so strong. He just runs back to his tower. He just runs back to his tower, then what are the wolves going to do? Nothing. Are the headhunters going to be able to get in range to do damage? No, because your archmage is going to be attacking them. Sends the militia back, continuing to build peasants. And notice, like I said before, when the expansion is secure, meaning you have your arcane and you have your town hall finished, builds a lumber mill. Look at the time, it's about to be 6 minutes, so we have about a minute before Wind Riders can come out. If you want to know what that exact timing is, it's about the last dot of night before the heal scrolls spawn at the shop. You can see right here. So he's gonna build a guard tower here, and he's gonna build a guard tower here. And notice, Archmage still healthy. This is the most important thing. He's lost some peasants. He's lost like 4 peasants. Who cares? His Archmage is healthy. Probably could have lost 6 peasants. Who cares? His Archmage is healthy. And he plays very defensive. As soon as he's given some space, he wants to get level 3 Archmage. Why does he want level 3 Archmage? Well, because he wants the potential to be able to cancel a counter expansion, but he also wants the potential to maybe be able to go into the base and kill burrows or something, right? And there's level 3. Notice, guard tower on time. Look at the bestiaries. This will be a guard tower soon. This will be a guard tower on time, right? Shop coming up as well. And this is all before he techs. He's making sure he's safe. He's got his lumber mill, improved lumber harvesting, his shop to heal up his footmen, his guard tower at each base. This is before he's teching. He's playing it very safe. Not just with his footmen and his archmage health, but with his bases, right? And now in the last replay, this is a position very similar to last game. Remember we saw Hitman creeping the shop on Echo Isles? What did Bowt do? Well, he went and fought the Torn Chieftain and the Headhunters at the shop. What is Sock doing? Well, he sees where the Farseer is. I believe he saw the panda run over here with a footman. Even if not, he can kind of assume that one of these camps is being taken. And he's going towards the main base because he knows he can't take a direct fight. The panda and the Farseer is going to kill every single footman if he takes a fight right now. So instead, what does he do? He's going to go to the shop. He's going to get a Staff of Teleportation, maybe Boots of Speed, if he has the gold, which he does, maybe both. He's going to go into the main base. Is he going to get any damage done in the main base? Maybe not, but he knows that Fly has to react by coming back home to this, or else he's going to lose burrows. If he doesn't lose burrows, he's going to be losing mining time because Sock's going to go for the peons on the gold mine. Fly has to react to this, and there's towers here. There's towers here. There's a tower here. There's militia to be called, right? He's got to react.
A player's forces are under attack.
Oh, believe me, Mundane. Fly's going to put on some pressure this game. Believe me. And if Fly was pressuring here, you ask, it's a decent point, right? Yes, orcs are normally just constantly in your face. Notice when Fly was pressuring here, Sock was just chilling right here. He was calling militia when he needed them, and he was just sitting by his tower. And if Fly commits all the way in here, he sits by his tower, he calls militia in the back, and he's got his footmen here and his archmage just attacking the entire time. And yeah, you're going to lose some units, but it's going to be a 1-for-1 trade. The only mistake in fighting the orc is if you're fighting him out in the open by creepjacking him, or if you're chasing him across the entire map for no reason, allowing him to kite you. But if you're taking a fight in a defensive position like this, with militia in the back and a tower in the back and your archmage constantly attacking, that's totally fine. The mistake happens when you think you can win the fight in an open field. And that's a very common mistake against undeads and against orcs.
A player's forces are under attack.
Question for militia, do you keep a couple control groups for militia? I think it's different for most human players, but for me, when I play human, I just hotkey all my lumber peasants. In this case, I wouldn't hotkey these guys, but I'd hotkey all my lumber peasants in my main base, right? But there's probably different human players would do it differently. And see, he loses a couple footman stock for this, but what has he bought? He's bought in time. Because, of course, he's teching, and he's getting towers up as well. Notice when the tech starts, what does he do? Blacksmith immediately in the front. This is going to be for rifles, of course, in the future, and upgrades. But it's also protecting the expansion. The base build is very important. Sock always puts these 2 towers in this position. This tower is in a position where it can't be canceled easily, and it is able to get here to attack the Farseer. This guard tower is in a position in such a way that no Wind Riders would be able to attack any peasants. Same with this guard tower. Notice, no Wind Rider, maybe this peasant, but they wouldn't be able to attack the gold peasants or any of these bad boys. Notice the towers. Also, the towers in this base, what's the most likely avenue for raiders to hit? Well, if I'm an orc player, I'm going to kill this shop, and then I'm going to kill this altar probably. I'm not likely to attack this barracks. And if I were to attack this barracks, then the base would be open and maybe the towers would be exposed. But more likely is it that this side of your base is going to be exposed as a human player. So notice, towers at the top. This is going to be very important for Sock. He's thought about these things. He's thought about the positioning of all of his towers. He's thought about the positioning of his towers at his expansion and where things are going to go. All in advance. And this isn't something that makes Sock a world-class player. It's something that everyone can do. The things that make Sock a world-class player is understanding that he has to figure this stuff out before he jumps into a game. But anyone can do this. Anyone can jump into a game and go, oh, I'm going to put my blacksmith here, and then I'll block here, and then I got room for a couple of farms. Anyone can do this. Right? It's just a matter of actually taking the time to predetermine where you're going to put these things and put some thought into it. Right? And he has worked out the positioning for all this stuff. And now all of a sudden, Sock has checked so many things off the boxes. He's got level 3 Archmage to stop a counter expansion. He's taken fights indirectly by attacking the base. He's defended against hit and run. He's defended against Wind Riders. He hasn't overcommitted his footmen to the middle of the map. He's kept his Archmage healthy in the early game. All these things he's checked the boxes. Has he saved every peasant? No, he lost some peasants. He lost some footmen, but he checked every other box. This is a mistake. Now we're seeing a mistake. This is going to be a town portal. Someone asked why these peasants are in the top when the south of the base. Well, he's got peasants at both sides, right? These footmen are just forcing Fly to come back. They're just forcing him to come back. He might lose a couple footmen. This was an objective mistake. I mean, there's nothing... I don't think he realized Fly was here, so he ran in and got surrounded. But these footmen, very smartly, they were chilling at the top of the map, and they went into the base, and now he knows that Fly has to react, because burrows cannot kill defended footmen. It's going to take ages, and that was stopping the mining. He's got to react to these plays, right? Notice the shop is pretty exposed, but what's important is the main base is safe, right? Like the altar might die, the shop might die, these farms might die, but the towers are always going to be safe behind this structure. And if the towers are safe, you can make plays like this, because you don't... The second the orc is able to get into your base in this sort of a style that Fly's playing, the very aggressive, I'm gonna kill your base and not counter expand style. The second he's able to get into your base and start attacking your towers, especially with Breath of Fire and Chain Lightning, you're gonna lose these towers and then you can no longer defend your base. So if these towers are safe, should be Masonry level 2 coming up as well. If these towers are safe, it doesn't matter if these structures are dying, if this structure is dying, although important to get an Arcane Sanctum up. What's important is keeping these towers alive, and then you can do things like cutesy plays like this, right? And notice, look at this. Look how solid this is. Shop being rebuilt. Blacksmith here. Towers here. I think one mistake for this build so far from Sock is there's no farm right here. I think having a farm right here would be great. But of course, can't do everything. It's a very difficult strategy. And I mentioned it was a difficult strategy at the beginning of the episode, but you know. Not every strat's supposed to be easy. Blood Mage, we talked about this earlier. Blood Mage, 2 Arcane Sanctums, Blacksmith for rifles. Standard, just like we saw Bowt doing, just like I'm sure we would have seen Sock do earlier against Focus, if he got to that point. Footman, just again, forcing Fly to react somehow. Think about it. If the towers were here, say this lumber mill was gone, right? Where might we see towers? Maybe we'd see an arcane tower right here, and then like 2 guards right here. If these towers were here, Fly would be killing both guard towers and attacking the arcane. All the towers would be dead, and Sock would no longer be able to defend his main base, and it would be 1 base, 1 base. Fly would be able to town portal back after killing the main base, and Fly would probably win the game. But look at this lumber mill, making a good buffer. The towers are safe. There's enough peasants here to repair the towers, and although buildings are dying down here, the towers are in a safe position, all thought out in advance by Sock to stop this sort of a situation. If the towers were here, Sock would probably lose this game. In fact, I know he would lose this game. But still, counterattack. Defend is really good in these situations. And Sock is taking damage, but he's doing equal damage to the economy. Close to. I mean, this is a lot of damage, let's be honest, but, like, do we have a peasant kill counter? Yeah, exactly. Agent says Blood Mage is best level 1 hero against higher level heroes. Absolutely. That's why the Blood Mage is so good here. If he gets a Mountain King level 1, then it's not ideal. Town portal's back. How many peons went down? A decent number of peons, actually. Oh, these are footman corpses as well, but a couple of peons went down, rather. And a lot of peasants. Look at all the peasants. Look at all the peasants. But the expansion? Solidarity. Altar. Up. Peasants. Mining lumber. The tech's still intact. There's no Arcane Sanctum, so it's not great, but, like, game ain't over. Mundane, I do think there's an argument to be made where if the Orc goes Torn Chieftain, you could get a Mountain King. Why you'd want that is because you'd want to Stormbolt to control the Torn Chieftain from getting money stomps on your rifles. But there's also an argument to be made that regardless of Panda or Torn Chieftain, you should go just Blood Mage. I think both are valid, but I would say against the Panda, I think Blood Mage would always be the better choice. But there's just something to be said about having an ability to control a Torn Chieftain with Stormbolt, right? This is going to be a mistake from Fly a little bit. Taking a little bit too much damage on his farce here, old Fly. Banish is also good against ensnares, absolutely, yeah. Banish against the Raiders to stop them from killing buildings. Also, Banish stops ensnare completely. Blood Mage is now out. Another thing Blood Mage does is in these positions, if Sock was out of mana, he would just siphon all this mana and have another Water Elemental. Water Elementals are so good here for Sock. So we'd have infinite. You just imagine a world in which these towers were poorly positioned. I think with that invuln, Sock was just playing it safe. And it's a very high-pressure, multitask-heavy position, so I think it's all right. Okay, now Sock is defended. His economy ain't great, but what he needs, yeah, he needs to get that army out that I've been talking about. He needs Breaker, Sork, Priest, Rifle. So he needs 2 Arcane Sanctums when he can. And he also needs to be scouting for a counter expansion now. Because if Fly isn't able to break one of his bases, Fly cannot win the game. He killed a lot of peasants, yeah, but if he's not able to literally kill one of these bases and stop them from mining so the economy is even, Fly is not going to win this game in the long run. So what Sock needs to do is either be ready for another counterattack with all these raiders, which is probably going to happen, or he needs to be ready for a counter expansion. And we see he's trying to scout that with the water elementals.
A player's forces are under attack.
Notice, I would love one farm here. Would really love one farm here. It's the small things that matter, because, like, you know, the towers being on this side seem like a small thing, but... And Fly realizes the army is there, so he smartly goes to the expansion. And you just think if there's a farm right there, just a farm right there. But we'll see how many raiders Sock is able to kill. So far, 1 has gone down. 2. 3 is gonna fall. 3 raiders are gonna fall, maybe a 4th. 4, 5. Let's see, 6. 7. 7 raiders. Probably worth it, especially seeing as though Sock still has the gold and close to the lumber to rebuild that. 7 raiders. Totally worth it, right? So you could say that was a little bit suicidal from Fly, but what was his other option? Well, his other option, of course, was to either counter-expand or lose the game. And Sock was kind of covering both options, so, like, of course, that probably wasn't the right play from Fly. He lost 7 raiders for it, but he was able to get the base. But the other option would be to counter-expand, in which case that's what those water elementals going up earlier were trying to do. Trying to find the counter-expansion. So this is what Sock has to be ready for, is a counter-expansion. And Fly, we're going to see, he's going tier 3, so that the counter-expansion isn't cancelable, because he knows at this stage, with the Staff of Teleportation, with the Blood Mage now being out to deal with the Ensnare lock on the Archmage, if he went for a slow 2.5-minute expansion, it would most likely be canceled by Sock. So he's going to go for tier 3 for the Tiny Great Hall, which isn't cancelable, but you got to wait to get tier 3 to get there. So in this time, Sock should just try to get up to 60 supply or so. But for now, he's just trying to get his expansion back. But he just killed 7 raiders. So the army differential's not massive right now, right? Not massive. The hero levels are pretty strong for Fly, but the differential's not huge in the armies. 37 against 42. No, I don't think it was a good play by Fly, Strongly. I don't think it was. I'm just saying, if he wasn't willing to counter-expand, that was his only play, was my point. So he either had to do what he did and suicide the 7 raiders like that, or he would have had to counter-expand. And both were kind of covered by Sock. The hit and run was covered, of course, we saw it right here, but the counter-expansion is also covered in the fact that there's a level 5 Archmage, so it forces Fly to go tier 3. That's more so my point. Were the Sorks countering? Well, there's simply just not a lot of Dispel. So the Sorks are countering everything. Is he building that farm now? Oh, good boy, Sock. Good boy. And of course, there's a farm here as well. Good boy. The Sorks are essentially countering the entire playbook of Fly. Now you can be the one kiting, because although you could say, like, oh, there's shamans, therefore Sorks shouldn't be good, there's not that much shaman mana. When a shaman comes out of the Spirit Lodge, he's got 1. I think on Master, they might have 2 purges. So, like, he can get rid of almost 2 slows right now. Right? How many slows are there? Well, there's about 7. Speed Scroll, of course, can counter it, but you've only got 1 of those. But yeah, Sorks are a very good option. Very good option. But still, Fly is stronger right now. Because there's no heal scrolls. Okay, there's 1, but maybe you'll probably need about 2, maybe even 3 heal scrolls here, if you're Sock and you want to fight. And of course, I'm always mentioning it in this matchup, you want that Wall of Breakers, ideally. You would love that Wall of Breakers. Where's the second Arcane Sanctum? Not up yet, so it's going to be very difficult to get that Wall of Breakers. Unless I missed. Did I miss the second Sanctum? No, I don't think I did, right? I did not. Now look at this. No way you're breaking this any longer. And the counter expansion is going to be coming. And this will be level 3 Blood Mage. Level 3 Blood Mage is insanely good, if you can get it. It's, of course, difficult to get in these sorts of games, but yeah, 30 mana per second Siphon. Just insane. There's the second Arcane Sanctum. I would expect to see Sock break with some breakers now. Once he has some breakers in the front line, this army will be a lot stronger. Probably 1 more heal scroll minimum, some breakers in the front line, and Sock's going to be in a great position to now scout, first of all, of course, and hit a timing on this Tiny Great Hall. Tricky game, though, right? A very tricky game. Not easy. Didn't say it was going to be easy. Level 5 Panda. Level 4 Farseer. We're not out of the woods yet, but we do have a supply advantage and quite a gold lead currently. Yeah, Siphon, Banish, Siphon. And then sometimes you'll go into Flame Strike on level 4, but not always. Notice Banish coming into play. Shadowhunter to counter the Siphon from Fly. But notice the slow. This is a very winnable fight for Fly. Although the supply differential seems big, there is currently 9 supply in production. So it is actually 45 against 50 right now, active supply. But there's a Panda level 5 on the field. How many heal scrolls is there? Only 1 still. There's a counter to the Siphon. So you imagine if these Sorks were like priests, right? Or if these Sorks were like 1 rifle. Be very easy for Fly to dominate this fight. He could eat one of these rifles, he can kite with the Ensnare, he can continuously Breath of Fire, Chain Lightning, but because there's Sorks, now Sok has the initiative to kite, and because he has Banish, he can deal with the Raiders. Anytime they ensnare a unit, he can banish that unit. So because there's Sorks, this is a very winnable fight now, despite the Panda level 5 close to killing everything. Look at the breath. It's incredible. But now, like, the Raiders are slowed, the Panda's slowed, he's out of mana. The combination of the Sorks and the Blood Mage make this a very easy fight for the human. And this is why I pointed out earlier. In the late game, human has the advantage. You might not like it, human players, but your army's better in the late game, guys, okay? It just is. Now, probably another heal scroll. There's another heal scroll. And the breakers are coming out once those second sanctums are up, and now Sok is in a very good position to win a fight. And he probably knows at this point. He saw Shadowhunter, he sees Berserkers. He's got to know there's a tiny Great Hall that's gotten up. And now 65 against 54, and Sok has just held on and held on and held on and held on. And now he's got the army that he wished for, right? This is still, it's worth noting, this is still the army that Sok would want if all of this hadn't happened, if the kill on the Town Hall hadn't happened, if all the peasants dying here hadn't happened. This is still the army that Sok would go for. He'd want Breakers, Rifles, Sorks, and Priests, and probably a Blood Mage second. The only difference is he would have this army probably about 10 minutes earlier, and then he would still be pushing this expansion or pushing the main base with this army. It'd still be the same army, though. From what I have seen in the replays I have watched. Right. Panda is insane, but Blood Mage level 3 is probably as good as a Panda level 5 in this situation. And notice the slow. There's just not enough purges. There could be 4 shamans and you'd still run out of purges, right? 62 against 58. Surprised he's still making rifles versus Panda 5. Yeah, I think he should be prioritizing getting more breakers, as he is. Is he stopping rifle production? He has now. So he's probably going to try to get up to about 8 breakers if he can, maybe 6 to 8. He's got a good number of rifles now that he has like sort of the damage, because what do you miss when you go for Blood Mage and you don't retrain Blizzard and have Flame Strike? You of course miss the damage of the Mountain King level 3. It's not a secret that most of the damage of the human army comes from Clap and comes from things like Blizzard, right? So you need to sort of have somewhere to get that damage from, so that's what the rifles are for. Because if not, it's going to be very hard to kill units with a Blood Mage and an Archmage with Water Elemental and Siphon Banish, right? So the rifles are essential. Although bad against the Panda 5, these rifles are most of Sok's damage currently with the Water Elementals, right? Would love to see some unit upgrades for sure. I think if this lumber economy hadn't been so hugely disrupted throughout the game, we'd probably see like maybe 1-0 rifles, 1-0 on the breakers. Obviously, we'd see Adept on the Priests, Adept on the Sorks, but the lumber has just been so hurt this game. Okay, Shredder gets killed. Expansion gets disrupted. But still, Scary Orc, 3 Kodas if these all eat, if the breaths are good. Would have loved to see that invuln pop by Fly there to get another breath off before the Siphon, but he does have a Hex, of course, to deal with that. Definitely a place where you Town Portal. You've stopped the mining, you've killed the Shredder, Town Portal out and get more heal scrolls and repush. Definitely gonna see a Town Portal here. Kills a Koda. Almost. Okay, does kill a Kodo. And then Town Portals, but not before losing a lot, so a mistake, I would say, from Sock, and overextension there. Probably stayed about 10-12 seconds longer than he should have. And paid for it. But still, 62 against 49 currently. And he stopped the mining for quite a while. And again, he killed the Shredder. So more heal scrolls. Still needs more breakers. We see him still pumping breakers. Trading out these rifles a little bit for the breakers. But he's still got 3 rifles. Tauren, yeah, a couple people have mentioned Taurens. I don't think... There's an argument to be made, of course, that Taurens would be good against this army. Well, they are good against this army. But against a Blood Mage, honestly, Taurens just get sort of banished. They just get banished. And they also, against Sorks, they kind of get kited as well. So it's a little bit rough. Although Taurens are very good. They're probably the best melee unit in the entire game. And they're very good, against, of course, against rifles and against breakers. And against heroes, even. In this case, they would probably just get banished, and then the walkers would just get siphoned, so they wouldn't have resurrection, and then you would continue to banish. There's a Sobi mask on the Blood Mage. There's going to be Aura level 3 soon, if no mass teleport. There's going to be banish. If you have 4 Taurens, they would probably all still be able to get banished. So Taurens are kind of tricky to use. Yeah, I think respec into Flamestrike wouldn't be bad, but I think more often we'd see a retrain to Blizzard first and keep the banish for now, and then much later on retrain to Flamestrike. But again, you need the banish for if there's raiders, which there isn't, but you also need it for Taurens, and it's also good to use against the Panda to banish and then siphon. 67 against 50. The whole game has led up to this. And finally, Sock has the 15 supply advantage that he wanted the whole time. And finally, he can take a fight and probably win the fight. The whole game has led up to this. All the defensive play, all the trying to get peasants back up, building lots of towers, avoiding fights. It's all led up to this point. He's got 3 heal scrolls. He's got 67 supply. He's got the wall of breakers that he needs. He's got the level 3 Blood Mage, level 4 now, but he's got level 3, is most importantly. Sock finally has what he needs, and he can finally win the fight. Spanish good on codes to prevent eating. Yeah, of course we see Sock using that as well. And notice, if there was Taurens here, look, we're about 20 seconds into this fight. The Blood Mage has more than max mana. And he's been banishing Kodos, he's been banishing the Panda. More than max mana still. So you imagine if there was Taurens here, it would probably still be a similar situation. And there'd be lots of banishes, right? There's still 2 heal scrolls here. The Wolves and the Water Elementals dealt with all the peons. Level 6 on the Archmage. Aura? Or mass teleport? He did get mass teleport. And a very, very nice game from Sock. A very nice game. Did everything right. A couple tiny errors. Right, before Fly GG's. Let's look at the couple of tiny errors. One, he town ported a little bit late here. Another one, he had a tiny overextension here in the very early game. Another one, he had to town portal a bit earlier. Or he had to town portal here by accident. Another one, maybe he didn't have this farm here, so he lost the town hall. If he had this farm here, he wouldn't have lost the town hall. Very small errors that Sock made this game. Other than that, everything was close to perfect. Beautiful, in my opinion. No cooldown on Banish. There is no cooldown. I think by the time... Well, is it like, what is it, like half a second? By the time the Banish animation is over, you can cast another Banish. As far as... I don't think there's a... I might be wrong. It's very short if there is a cooldown for Banish. Very, very short. Half a second? Okay, yeah. Banish can be purged, but again, I say, just like earlier with the slow, although slow can be purged, even if there's... How many shamans would the orc player have maximum? Maybe 5 in their army? Say an orc player was 80 supply. How many shamans do they have? 7? All those shamans are full mana, so they have 7 300 mana shamans. There's level 2 Brilliance Aura. There's a Blood Mage siphoning all your mana. There's Banishes all over the place. There's Slow all over the place. There's level 3 Water Elementals. You're not going to have enough mana on the Shamans regardless. And, you know, that's best case scenario. There's just too much stuff to be dealt with only Shamans currently, which is why the Banish is good, which is why the Sorks are good, right? Well, Blood Mage is very good, but Blood Mage is probably the hardest hero in the game to use. Maybe Warden, more difficult. Blade Master, maybe difficult as well, but Blood Mage is one of the most tricky heroes to use effectively in the entire game, so it's very strong, but it's hard to use it as well as Sock does, and as well as people like Thorzane use it, right? Okay, you happy human players? There you go! Beautiful. Beautiful from Sock. Incredibly well played. Incredibly well played. Checked all the boxes. We mentioned a bunch of mistakes we saw in those first 2 replays. Sock fixed all those errors and played it beautifully. 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 We got 2 more replays where the human's going to play beautifully as well, okay? 2 more replays. I think close combat heroes are harder than long range. Yeah, like Blade Master or Blade Master, Warden. Yeah, because Breakers, Bloodlust ain't the best because Breakers can steal Bloodlust. Although you could definitely say Fly could have gotten it if he had enough Shamans that game. If he had enough Shamans. Do I already know the outcome of the games? Yes, I watch all these replays and take notes on all these replays before we have the show. A TheoryCraft of Human versus Warden would be awesome. Yep, I did look for replays against Warden. I just didn't quite find enough. I also looked for replays against Beastmaster. For Human against Elf, couldn't find enough. Yeah. Yeah, I did look for those things. I wanted to actually originally do Human against Warden. And I also originally wanted to do Human against Farseer Headhunters with 1 base, but you know, I can't analyze my own replays because, you know, wouldn't learn much. Okay, replay 4. So that was more, although you could argue Fly was not as aggressive as maybe you could be. You know, he could have been more aggro. He could have gone to those 2 Wind Riders, which would have been countered, however. He could have harassed on level 1 Panda. Could have done a little bit more to be more aggressive. He could have built more Headhunters, potentially. So he could have been a bit more aggressive, but that was the best example I could find of an Orc being very aggressive against a human that's checking all the boxes properly. This next replay will be Infi against Fly on Echo Isles, and this will be more of an example of the Orc player trying to play more of a macro game, so the counter expansion option. And we're going to see how Infi deals with the counter expansion. Worth noting before we jump into this game, this was a game where Infi played random this whole series, but the best response to random on Echo Isles as an Orc player is to still go Farseer Headhunters with a Peon Scout, which is the standard anyway against human. So Infi being random on this map, it may have made a tiny difference, but I don't think it actually makes any difference. Because you still Peon Scout, you still need that Peon to go to the Merc camp to deny the Priest pull, and you still go Farseer Headhunters. Don't think anything changes because Infi was random. Fly happened to just get the right build order in this series. This is from War 3 Champions, those of you that remember that tournament. Oh, you studied this replay, Stop Click? Yeah. It's a great replay. When I saw this, I was like, damn, he played really well. Infi played this super well. Because we don't get to see Infi's human too often. And of course, as I suggested in the earlier part of this episode, Infi just told human players just to switch races. See, guys, he's just like you. He's just like all you human players. Just angry all the time. Yeah, exactly, Stop Click, exactly. So we're going to watch Infi play more of a macro game. Of course, he's playing a macro game because he's fast expanding, but the reaction of the Orc player is to try to get into 2-base, right? So we're going to see how Infi reacts to not just super aggressive orc play, although Fly is still a very aggressive player, just that's what his style is. But he's going to go for a counter expansion. Because Spirit Walkers have helped. Is there a reason why we don't see them so often? Shamans are just better immediately for dealing with water elementals. They're also, like, Lightning Shield is very good, too. And we very commonly, I think it's an error that we haven't seen, we didn't see a Witch Doctor. Maybe not last game. No, I think a Witch Doctor would have been good last game. You can also get Witch Doctors with Shamans, but they're just much better immediately for immediate dispel against water elementals, so you continue being aggressive and you can win a lot of fights in the mid game. As soon as your Tauren Chieftain is out and you have like a 2 Shamans, you can very often win fights and get rid of the water elementals. And Spirit Link isn't that effective because, of course, there's just going to be a wall of breakers anyway. And the damage isn't that important. What's great about Spirit Walkers is their disenchant is AoE, but it takes more mana, so you have less of them. But also they have really good damage. But that's not very good when you're against breakers either. The damage doesn't come into play, so, you know, Shamans are cheaper, you have better dispel, you have Lightning Shield. Spirit Link isn't that effective, the damage isn't that useful. So Shamans just end up kind of being the better of the 2 units. But of course, when there's a lot of things like Sorks and Water Elementals and Banish, the AoE disenchant, like last game for example, probably would have been great. But it's just a matter of Fly didn't really have the economy because he had a very late counter expansion. He didn't have the economy to have all these things, right? Yeah, and Purge control as well. To lock down heroes, go for hero focus. Because you don't often have raiders. When you go for Farseer Headhunters, you go 6 Headhunters. 6 Headhunters, then you go for 1 Grunt, and then you get 2 Shamans, you're at 41 supply, and then you go for an expansion. That's the standard way to play. What's missing from the equation? Well, you don't have raiders early on. You do get raiders later, but in the most standard variation of Farseer Headhunters, you don't have raiders. So Purge allows you to go for hero focus if the Archmage is out of position. That's a great point. Echo. Great point. Well, it's just 1 Grunt before the expansion. And the reason why you have 1 Grunt is because you're trying to prepare for the immediate either breakers from the human or rifles from the human. I did a whole episode on this build order, episode 14. You can go check it out. Okay, that's it. So, 2 more replays. This is on Echo Isles. This is on Echo Isles. Wow, this is turning into a long episode. Jesus. I thought this was going to be a short episode. I was like, you know, it'll be like an hour and 45 minutes. You know, a bunch of humans players will get mad at me and it'll be over with. But we're 2 hours in already. All right. Here we go. Replay 3. More of a macro game. Still very aggressive from Fly in the early and mid game. But more of a macro game. Note how many peasants Infi loses this game. He loses a lot. Loses a lot. Here we go. Let me load it up. Replay 4. Replay 4 of 5 replays. And then the last replay will be Chaemiko. We'll do 3 different human players today, winning games. How cool is that? All right, we'll do it from my perspective. Here we go. Play 4. Episode 11? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nimok. Episode 11. So here's Infi in the top left. The rare occasion we get to see Infi playing human. Notice, although I don't actually remember this detail, he might block his base eventually, but notice, last time when we watched Bowt, he actually had his full base closed, whereas this case when we have Infi, he has his base open. For now, why does he have his base open? Because he needs to keep his Archmage safe in the back, potentially, because Archmage health is extremely important to keep high. So he's got his base open for now, so that if there's a Farseer harassing and he's got to fight a bunch of Headhunters, he can just hide back here if he needs to. Although Infi might just block his base eventually. He might. I might be totally wrong. He might build a farm here. Don't quote me, but for now it's open, right? And here's Fly again, the top right. All the replays for some reason are Fly. We had a Focus replay earlier, Hitman replay as well, but there's just a lot of Fly replays out there. He plays more tournaments than Lin and those guys. What can I say? He plays every tournament, this guy. What do you mean, the one true shrub? What do you mean? I'll bite. Here we go, Archmage coming out. All standard stuff. Notice, Peon, Scout. The only difference here in this game is that the Peon would have probably gone here. Right? If it wasn't random from Infi, it probably would have already been here. Farseer headers, all standard stuff. Archmage comes out. Militia called immediately. Where's he gonna go? Peon still makes it there in time to deny the priest. Probably even gonna buy the priest. Yep, so everything is the same. Everything happens the same as it would have. Immediate expansion creep, just like we saw earlier from that human player losing on Echo Isles. The priest dies, but the priest was able to get the entire water elemental, and it used all of its mana before it died. So not too bad. A lot of peasants are going to take some extra damage. The footman's going to take extra damage. So although that may have seemed just like a waste with that priest, it got decent done. Decent damage done. And denied by creeps, absolutely. Yep, so didn't give it any experience. All the creeps so far have gone to Infi, though. And remember, we're not trying to not lose any peasants. We're gonna lose peasants. So there's 2. 1 was denied, but 3 peasants are gonna fall already. Four peasants. We're gonna lose peasants. It's gonna happen, guys. It's gonna happen. But what is important about this picture? What's important? We lost 4 peasants. What's important? Look at our Archmage health, man. Look at it. Look at it. Fly has sacrificed mana and a little bit of health, not a ton, mostly wolf health, for peasants. But he has not sacrificed his health to trade with the AM. The footmen are pretty healthy as well. Most importantly, though, the Archmage is healthy. Yes, it's important for your footmen to be healthy, but first and foremost, that's what I'm looking for. It's the Archmage health. And the ring helps, although claws would be stronger here. Notice? Oh, what did you just see there, guys? What is he doing? He isn't just chasing with all of his footmen and attacking the headhunters like an idiot. He's running them back. Incredible, incredible. Look, he's not committing them in. Oh, and now he's chasing. But he just runs him back. Runs him back. I don't want to fight him. Don't want to fight him. Not going to fight him. Not going to fight him. Gets the tower up. Standard, right? The tower. Power build it first, then get your expansion up. Footman, still healthy. Archmage, still healthy. Beautiful. Beautiful. There's wolves in the main base. Whatever. We're going to lose some peasants. We're going to lose some peasants. It's all right. Does it make sense to get Boots of Speed on your AM? Yeah, we're probably going to see Boots of Speed from Infi this game. We did see Boots of Speed from Sock last game. Yeah, if you can afford it, Boots of Speed is great. Staff of Teleportation, I would say, is a must. That's all right, Nudal. That's all right, brother. Archmage, healthy. Farseer, half. Notice, as soon as he turns around to start attacking them, he's running his footmen away. See, he's not committing his footmen in to just try to chase around these headhunters. Right? He's just running back. See, just Archmage dealing with these. He's losing peasants, but it's fine. Six peasants falling. 7 peasants. Six peasants. Or was that 7? I miscounted. It's a lot of peasants. But what's important? Look at the footman. Healthy. Look at the Archmage. Full health. Right? Full health. Fly again has committed health on his headhunters, health on headhunter, health on headhunter, health on headhunter for damage on peasants, which is a very common thing that orc players do. Every orc player you meet on ladder is going to go for this. They're going to try to kill all your peasants. They're going to sacrifice health on their farseer and their headhunters. Look at all that. But what they're not going to do, they're not going to damage your footman, they're not going to damage your archmage. Infi has sacrificed 7 peasants and not killed a single unit. But is he in a good position? Yeah, he's in a pretty good position. How many peasants are too many? That's hard to say. Hard to say. How many peasants are too many? I don't know. We're getting there. We're kind of getting there, but you know, we're not quite there yet. But look at this. He hasn't killed a single unit yet. The priest died. Sorry, the priest did die, but that was denied by the creeps.
A player's forces are under attack.
Yeah, you could say, well, you could say that Fly should probably be focusing the Archmage and the Footman. But you could also say that Infi has played very well around the fact that Fly should do that and not really allowed him to get damage. Like, every time Fly kited back with the Headhunters, Infi just ran his Footman back. Right? Every time there's potential focus on the Archmage, Infi just runs it back. So you could say, yeah, Fly should probably be trying to focus more on the Archmage and the Footman. But the important thing is, Infi hasn't given Fly the opportunity to put damage on that. He's only given Fly the opportunity to put damage on peasants. And as somebody pointed out correctly earlier in the chat, you're either going to take damage on your peasants or your footmen. You have to choose, because the orc has wolves, he has headhunters. He's going to be able to put damage on something. You either have to lose footman health and archmage health to defend your peasants, or you have to keep your peasants and your archmage healthy and you know, you're going to lose some peasants. What do you, break some eggs, make an omelet, whatever they say. And so, yeah, Fly maybe is making an error by committing too much in for peasants, but that's all he can get out of this. That's all he can get. If he turned now, you could say, oh, he could be attacking the Archmage right now. If he turned now and attacked the Archmage, if you don't have the health advantage, you can't do this. All he can get right here, he can maybe get this peasant kill, he can maybe get this peasant kill, he could probably even get 2 or 3 of these. But if he were to turn around with everything and start attacking the Archmage would just run, and the Farseer is still very low, so, right? Instead of a priest first, would it make sense to get breakers to steal wolves? You generally want to get a couple of priests, at least 2 early on, so that you can, you want to get 2 early on so that you can just creep efficiently, and then go into breakers later on. Yeah, why switch to grunts? I don't know. Gotta ask Fly. He probably thinks it's better against the Farseer Hunters. Again, there's a lot of opinions on what is best, or he probably thinks it's best against the fast expansion. Again, there's a lot of opinions from the orcs on what the best style is against this. The important thing is, he opened Farseer Headhunters. He built the headhunters, and now he's transitioning, reacting to the expansion. Right? But I have also seen this reaction that Fly is doing. I have seen this reaction from Focus as well. For Lyn, there's not a lot of replays of Lyn. So Footman all healthy. Archmage, again, once you get a little bit of space, you're able to creep that Archmage up to level 3. And that's what Infi's going to do. As soon as he's given some space, he's going to creep that Archmage up to level 3. Notice the guard tower timing. There should be one here, but the grunt here was kind of denying it. So maybe a slight error, but guard tower timing. Notice 7 minutes is when you want to have this bad boy up by. Look at the timing. Look at the timing. Once this grunt is dealt with, there'll be a tower. There's the tower. Maybe a bit late, but I mean, you imagine this is a Wind Rider, then it's got to run across the whole map, so probably a little bit of leeway here. But there's potential for this Wind Rider, if there was a Wind Rider, for it to do damage here. But the grunt goes, level 3 Archmage. For some reason, Shadowhunter from Fly, he must think this is the best answer. Who knows? I don't know. But again, more peasants are going to fall. It's alright. What is this, 10 peasants so far falling? My main race is Orc. The good thing about Shadowhunter here, which is maybe the thought process, if you hex a footman, which we just saw, even if the footman's in defend, it will still take full damage from the headhunters. So hex allows you to bully these defend footmen and really kill them. So it will gain you more map control. And what is Fly trying to do with the map control? Well, he wants to get a counter expansion up, and he also wants to stop Infi from like creeping. He wants to be able to steal away creep camps like this, and then ideally these two camps as well. So Shadowhunter is better at this than Tauren Chieftain or Panda, but it will be worse later on. Right, so that's what Hex is good for.
A player's forces are under attack.
And if he knows this, would this be a bad play for Infi to run in here? Maybe he could get some damage done with his creep jack, but he'd probably lose footman and not kill too much. The better play, go for the burrows. Cosmonaut gifted a sub to Garen Thos. 14 gifted subs in this channel. Thank you. Worth noting as well, this is kind of funny. This is the same exact, look at the fortified defenses. Last game when Sock came into Fly's base and killed one burrow, his fortified defenses finished 1 second before the burrow died. This game, the reinforced defenses are at the same timing. This attack into the main base by Infi is exactly the same timing, to the second even, within a couple of seconds, as the attack into the main base by Sock last game. Kind of interesting. Don't know if they planned that, but it's the same timing. What can I say? What do we expect to see if we go back to the expansion? Probably a blacksmith in the front. Not yet. Is there a tech coming up? There is, and a shop coming up. Lumber mill's up. Guard towers are up. I would expect to see... Oh, is this peasant going to build it? Maybe this peasant's going to build the blacksmith, but I would expect to see a blacksmith coming up right now. There it is. Okay, good. Notice, as soon as the army comes back, Infi's getting out of here. He's going to lose some footmen, but he's not going to fight stupidly into the orc army. There's no reason to. He's forced Fly back. He's killed a burrow even, which is just bonus. He didn't even need to kill a burrow. More importantly, he's bought space for his expansion. He's bought space for his tech. He's going to lose some footmen. He lost some peasants. Whatever. He's going to town portal here. Whatever. He's bought space for himself. And he's kept Fly off camps like this. He's kept Fly off camps like this, stealing them away from him. He's kept Fly on his side of the map and kept Fly a little bit more defensive. Level 3 Shadowhunter. And if Fly was given the opportunity, if this hit and run, this attack into the base didn't happen, Fly would have probably, well, he crept this, of course, but he probably would have already crept this. And then he probably would have ran over and crept this, and then he would have been aggressive on Infi's side of the map. But this attack into the main base stopped all that from happening, at least for the time being. And now we're going to see a peon go down for the counter expansion. I mentioned this was going to be a counter expansion attempt from the orc. That's what we're going to see. But notice, what was the scouting there? There's a footman here. Scouted the movement of Infi, or of Fly rather. Infi runs down. He's got a Staff of Teleportation, which is something that all these human players are going to get. He's going to defend his expansion. And the footmen are going to go up, forcing Fly back into his base, because these footmen have defend. The burrows cannot deal with defended footmen, so the army has to go back to deal with these footmen, or else Fly is going to be denied from mining for a long, long time. So these footmen going into the main base here are what's going to defend the expansion. It's not necessarily these two towers, it's not this Archmage being here, it's these footmen counterattacking that's going to defend the expansion for Infi. Just sick play. Sick play. Notice one footman going down to scout for the counter expansion. Blacksmith dying, a little bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world. And look at this, defend footman. What are you supposed to do? You can't deal with it with burrows. You need your heroes to go back. You need at least your Farseer to go back. Notice Blood Mage out. We'll take a look at the main base. Probably 2 Sanctums up at the main base. Just 1 for now. But a second one will come up soon. The lumber's good, so there should probably be a second one up. But of course he called Malicious, so he can't build it right away. But expect to see a second Arcane Sanctum come up. And that Blacksmith's going to have to be rebuilt. Again, the same army though. Rifle, Breaker, Sork, Priest. No need for tier 3. No need for mortar teams. Just keep it simple. 1 Barracks, 2 Arcane Sanctums. That's what everyone does with an expansion. Again, the Footmen. Look what they're doing. It's 4 Footmen. It's 8 supply in Footmen. Completely stopping this huge army from attacking the expansion. And this Footman also denied this. Just so sick. So sick. Would Tower Rush and Expo be viable option instead of counter expanding? Possibly. Haven't seen any orcs do it, but possibly. There's the counter expansion coming up, but worth noting that it has been scouted. That Footman knows about the counter expansion. So. And there's the second Arcane Sanctum coming up. So that you can get those breakers, although you don't have to deal with Stomp or Breath of Fire here. Still worth it to have breakers as a front line. And look how good the banish is. That banish, it's actually banished on level 1. Which is pretty sick against the Raiders. Footman's still lurking around the map. Still threatening. Not necessarily to stop this expansion, but what they are threatening is this Archmage could just staff a teleport onto them. Which is probably what's going to happen on one of these Footmen, and it's going to cancel this expansion. So these Footmen being out of here on the map, they're not going to get a lot done. They did get a lot done in the main base. But what they're going to do is give the Archmage the opportunity to cancel this. And there it is. Water Elemental should be spawned soon. And because there's Banish, you can kind of get out of here. You might lose a little bit if you're Infi, but you could still banish the Ensnares and run away. This is why Blood Mage is so good here. Better than Mountain King. If a Mountain King got caught out here, every Ensnare would be a kill. But look, Banish saves the rifle. So good. You're going to run out of Banishes. There's only got 1 more left, but expansion stopped, and that's all you need to do. Now you can just chill again. Look, 1,600 gold for Infi. And yeah, he lost some peasants. His lumber's a bit shy, but he stopped the expansion. He stopped the hit-and-run attempts. He stopped the Wind Riders. And he's still kind of stopping Fly from just stealing all of his creep camps by being a little bit aggressive with the Blood Mage. And soon enough, there's going to be like 70 supply against 50. And no 2 bases for Fly. There's a town portal if you really need to get out, and he's going to use the town portal. But again, there's only 1 speed scroll, and the slow is not going to be able to be, ridden of, so you gotta get out of there. See, this Raider's still slowed. This Headhunter's still slowed. And Infi's just chilling. He knows if he doesn't take any huge damage in the way of losing a hero or one of his town halls, he knows he's going to have a huge supply advantage. So he's just constantly scouting for this counter expansion, and then just playing it safe. Town portal's out. Don't think he would have been able to get that anyway with the amount of raiders he had with all the peasants being here. This is why I mentioned having peasants mining lumber not just at your main base, as he doesn't actually have that many at the main base right now. He does go tier 3 even too. But also having peasants mining lumber at the expansion is very important. Interesting tier 3 tech. But he's very, very far ahead, so... Weird, because he's got 0 lumber right now, so I don't understand really why that tier 3 tech is necessary from Infi. Especially seeing as though he stopped the expansion, but, tier 3 tech. Yeah, a lot of value from pillage, that's for sure. From Fly this game. But I suppose because he's not against a Tauren Chieftain or a Panda, he feels he doesn't need Walls of Breakers, so he can instead get, like, Inner Fire Rifles. With maybe, like, a Paladin third. Maybe would be the idea for going tier 3 here because of the Shadowhunter choice from Fly. Yeah, Infi's holding with 2 towers instead of 4 because there's a Shadowhunter here. So Shadowhunter is better sort of to fight over creep camps on the map and to try to secure a counter expansion. But it's worse at doing this sort of hit and run stuff that Fly's doing. Which is why there doesn't need to be a huge amount of towers here for Infi, right? Again, staff. Again, canceling these towers. Just crazy. Invis on this rifle.
A town is under siege.
Ensnare, but there's a town portal. So no need to be afraid. And 70 supply with 1,000 gold against 42. And even if this expansion gets up, which it probably won't, there's still going to be an 80 supply push at the expansion. And Infi's pretty much won this game at this point. Tier 3 is just going to be gravy on top. Probably could use a couple heal scrolls, maybe an invuln. But I don't think there's much chance for Fly at this point. And this is after an early game where he killed like 10 peasants. Heal scroll. 72 supply. Expansion's going to get canceled again. Banish is very pog. Although Mountain King is tempting because, again, a lot of the damage of the human army comes from Clap. Oh, nice play from Fly. A lot of the damage comes from Clap. It's tempting to go Mountain King, but we're seeing right here just why Blood Mage is so good in this situation. Because on level 1 and level 2, it gets so much value. So many units have been saved by Banish this game. Especially against Raiders, right? Yeah, probably just going to see Inner Fire, honestly. Yeah, there's Inner Fire. So just Inner Fire Rifles because there's no Tauren Chieftain was the idea of Infi this game. If there was a Tauren Chieftain, I would expect to see him stay on tier 2. But I don't know for sure. Gonna cancel this again. And Fly's doing everything he can, but we know what's gonna happen. We know what's gonna happen. Oh my god. Couple casters gonna die, but this is about 8 supply of a 76 supply army. And the expansion got canceled again, trying to rebuild it. Because again, you need to be on even economy eventually. You need to either kill one of these bases if you're the Orc, or be on even economy. There's also a Paladin. Filthy Robot with the raid for 117 viewers. What's up? Welcome, guys. Thank you. Got one more replay after this. We got one more. As Fly adjusts his zoom. But I'm not waiting for Fly to type zoom 2200. I'm waiting for Fly to type GG. As Knights come out as well. Lumber Mills in the front. Why not? He's got the gold to do it.
Town is under siege.
And Infi has 2 armies, one to cancel the expansion, and of course he can do this because he has Staff of Teleportation. That's why this item is so good, because you can do things like this. If he couldn't do things like this if he didn't have a Staff of Teleportation, because there's a chance the whole army of Fly goes back and just kills the Paladin and then starts killing casters, right? But because the Staff is here, you can do this, which is tricky to do, but you can do it. And this has just been a huge gold lead.
Player's forces are under siege.
I wonder how much gold has been pillaged this game. Yeah, he does build his towers about one space apart, or from the main, so they can repair it. That's kind of an interesting thing. Workshop, I wouldn't worry too much about this. I mean, Infi can do whatever he wants at this point. Like, he's literally fighting with two armies at the same time. He can do whatever he wants. He was probably going to build tanks even. I wouldn't be surprised. He could do whatever he wants here. Tanks against raiders, why not? And that should be the end of replay 4. Fly's really trying here, but he calls GG. And that's it for replay 4. We're going to watch one more replay. Actually, a replay that I only watched like half of. And I was like, okay, we can do this at the end. Just to see, we've seen Sock, we've seen Infi, and now we'll see Chaemiko, how he deals with this. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll be back, watch the last replay, and then we'll wrap up. Be right back. All right, we're back. Let's go to replay 5, the 5th and final replay. We watched Infi and we watched Sock so far defeat Fly. Now we will see if Chaemiko can do it, and we'll see how the 3 different players change. So far, I mean, we saw a tier 3 tech, which is a little bit different at the end of the game, but it was honestly when the game was already over. Other than that, it was pretty much exactly the same from Infi as it was for Sock. So we'll see if Chaemiko's any different. Here's replay number 5. Here we go. Here in the top right is Chaemiko. In the bottom left, we do have Fly. For some reason, all the replays are Fly. Whatever, he's still going Farseer ahead on us. We'll see if anything's different. Oh, there was more, Agent. There was more. There was Focus and So in replays as well. These are just the best examples. Alright, all standard. Again, the thing about this is it looks standard. If you had a peon come to this base, you would think, pretty standard. This isn't the best map for it. Again, like I said at the beginning, I think probably Last Refuge, Northern Isles, Echo Isle is the best 3 maps. Concealed Hill, you could argue. This is a tricky expansion, but we're going to see Chaemiko make an adjustment because of that. Of course, it's worth noting, where's the Farseer going to go when he comes out of the altar? Well, he's probably going to go up like this, and then up like this, and he's going to try to meet you here. He's also going to send one wolf to scout for the lab. He'll probably send another wolf to scout for the expansion most standardly. So he'll have a wolf here seeing you at the expansion, but his Farseer will be about here, running towards this camp. So what Chaemiko's going to do most of the time is creep this expansion first. And then the Farseer will know about it, but he won't necessarily be here in time to, like, fight you while you're creeping the camp. Right? So if you're going to expand a Concealed Hill, it's best, in my opinion, to creep this right away. If you creep the orange camp and then try to expand, you're probably just going to die. But in this case, there's nothing the Orc is going to be able to do to stop you from initially creeping this. He's still going to be able to do some damage afterwards. But look, and maybe a mistake from Fly would to not be to send a wolf up. But even if he did, his Farseer would still be here. Right? It would still be out of position.
A player's forces are under attack.
And Fly notices, runs away, runs over right away, but the whole creep has been crept. And let's see what Chaemiko does. The wolves are going in on the peasants that are trying to power build the tower first before the expansion. And notice Fly going for peasants because these look juicy peasants, right? Get him. He's going to get about 3, maybe 4 peasants, but damage on the Farseer. Mana from the wolves being invested. The Archmage is still healthy. The Footmen are still healthy. That's what's important. But there's a fountain here as well. Once it's nighttime, Fly could go to the fountain and heal up. That is also what can make this map a little bit tricky, because the fountains can be very good when you're the one being aggressive, because your back is to the fountain, so you can stop your opponent. So it can be a tricky map to expand on, for sure. I'll admit. Notice the peasants. We were talking about this earlier. Not messing up the peasant cycles. He's always got one building. Crystal Ball should be sold, but he can use it to scout the main base. What can he scout in the main base as he reveals this? He can scout in the main base. Is it 2 bestiaries? Is it Spirit Lodge? Is there a counter expansion? So the Crystal Ball is going to get some value. Boots and staff, probably. Boots just for now. I would expect to see a staff in the future for Chaemiko. And Headhunters without a Farseer are not that scary, so the Footmen are going to be able to do some damage here. Again, the fountain is being denied nicely. And if the Farseer is not here to trade attacks with Wolves and with the Farseer attacking the Archmage, then the Archmage can chase these Headhunters, but a nice block saves that Headhunter, and nothing has died so far, except for Peasants. Similar to last game, but one Headhunter will fall thanks to the Boots of Speed. Nicely done. Should be building Peasants right now, but slightly supply blocked, because there's actually no fourth farm built, but now there should be Peasants built from both this guy and this guy. ASAP. A little bit too much damage taken on that. See, this is what happens if you're trying to fight the Headhunters when the Farseer is close by. The Farseer just summons Wolves and starts attacking your Archmage. And then when the Archmage runs away, the Farseer just starts kiting with the Headhunters against the Footmen, which is why it's hard to actually take direct fights against Farseer Headhunters, because it's hard to trade when there's Wolves and a Farseer attacking your Archmage. That's why it's a little bit tough. But Chaemiko went for it, took a lot of damage, but he might actually get this creep camp. And he does get it. Shop coming up. Lumber mill should be coming up in the main base. There's a lumber mill. Expect to see a guard tower at each of these bases before the 7-minute mark, ideally. And again, just so much damage taken on the Archmage. I would say this is an error. But he's going to get another Headhunter because of an ensnare. And there's also fountains on this map, so maybe a little less important than other maps. But like, say, like if this Archmage took this much damage on another map, then it would be rough. He'd need to go back to the shop to heal. Right. But for now, Fly's lost 2 Headhunters. The Footmen are still healthy. Torn Chieftain now is out. This Footman should definitely run away. And here's the towers coming up. Should be a guard tower coming up very soon. Blacksmith after the tech. Would expect to see a guard tower still. Chaemiko's really playing with fire with these Boots of Speed. Not Night Elf versus Human quite yet. I've done Night Elf versus Orc, and Night Elf versus Undead. And what was my other Night Elf episode about? I forget. Night Elf versus Orc, Night Elf versus Undead. Forget what I did. Oh, I did 2 Night Elf versus Undeads and 1 Night Elf versus Orc. I did one from the Undead perspective, one from the Night Elf perspective. Of course. He scouts with the Water Elemental, the 2 Bestiaries. So we should be preparing back here. We see getting that tower. A late guard tower, though. But not late here. A little bit earlier upgraded. Was it in the main base that it should be on time if there was Wind Riders coming out? Yeah, Johnny, I would love to do that matchup. I was going to try to do that matchup today, but I only got the replays I got, unfortunately.
A town is under siege.
Going for the Burrow cancel. He's got the Staff of Teleportation now, and he's just slowing down, forcing Fly to react, or else this Burrow will be canceled indefinitely. Goes back and heals, and he's got plenty of towers, and look at the base build. This is This base build on the expansion is exactly the same from every human player. They put their first 2 towers here, they put their blacksmith here, 2 farms, and then their shop. Maybe these farms could be spread out a bit more, but this is the base build. If you're a human player and you want to know how to build your expansion on this map, this is how people do it. This is it. This is it right here. Maybe you could argue a shop could go here, but for sure the blacksmith, for sure these 2 towers, and for sure these farms. Right? That's how you do it.
A player's forces are under attack.
This is Chaemiko. See, the water elementals are still forcing a reaction from the orc. This burrow is still being cancelled. And this tower's coming up. Improved masonry and, of course, improved lumber harvesting. 2 things you can get, which is why fast expansion is stronger now than it used to be, because you have better tower repair, but you also have earlier double improved lumber harvesting, right? Which is good.
Player's forces are under attack.
Fly's doing a common thing where he's creeping Torn Chieftain level 3, and then he's going to push the expansion with Shockwave and Raiders. Not unheard of. It's been done against Criplord, and it's also been done commonly against human fast expansions, by the way. Tier 2 finishes. Double Arcane Sanctum come up. Rifles are coming out with long range. This is probably the cleanest game we've seen so far from a human. Not really disrupted at all has his macro been. He lost a few peasants earlier, but now look at this. No way you're going to break this expansion. The Arcane Sanctums are on time. The rifles are coming out. And we are going to see... We can actually see a Mountain King this time. Yeah, the most recent patch buffed the repair rates of towers that are upgrading.
Player's forces are under attack.
And just chilling. Notice he's scouting for a counter expansion. If there was a counter expansion, he would just immediately run down there and cancel it right now. But because there's not one, he knows he's just got to play defensive, macro up an army, and he can just chill. He doesn't have to act unless there's a counter expansion or unless there's a threat to his expansion. That's the only time Chaemiko has to act. Until then, he's just chilling. And this is chilling right now. See Sorks coming out, we'll see Priests coming out, we'll see Breakers and more Rifles coming out. Of course, he's already got the 2 Priests, and 2 Sorks, and then maybe mix in some Breakers after you have 2 and 2. And look at this, how are you supposed to break this? You're going to kill some peasants, but it's going to be rough to try to break this. Because look how good the base build is here. And Chaemiko's going to lose some stuff. But the important thing is he holds on, and he's still on 2 bases. Yeah, so MK instead of Blood Mage this time. I don't know exactly why. I couldn't tell you exactly why, but... Maybe because Chaemiko had much more space this game than the other players did. It could just be specifically to Chaemiko. Maybe he prefers Mountain King over Blood Mage, because this is the only Chaemiko game we've seen today. So it could be just specifically him. I don't think Mountain King's bad. I just think we saw last game on Echo Isles just how good Blood Mage was, especially against Raiders, right? Shop being rebuilt. Expansion's still very safe, although a couple less peasants on there than there once was. And just totally macroing. Immediately breaks upkeep. Gonna get up to 70 supply, and then he's just gonna do one final push. Because he knows either Fly has to push him and kill one of his bases, or he's got to counter expand. So all you gotta do is get up to 70 supply, and you cover both options. How many lumber peasants in total for 2 bases? Generally about 12. This game, I believe we saw 14 from Chaemiko, but normally around 12. I would say, you know, you should have minimum like 10, but generally about 12 is probably good. You can get 8 if you're planning on getting a Shredder, but you can't always guarantee you're going to get the Shredder, so... And just town portal out, play it safe, why not? Hey, safe back here. You imagine a shockwave on that. Oh my god, did he have a shockwave? Oh, he did. How sick would that have been? Yeah, the idea behind the wave was to try to break the expansion, but we just saw like how crazy the base build was. Hey, Yapon sick. Carson's the MVP. Please say hello to Ituski. Thank you for the €5.80. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Itsuki. Sorry, Itsuki. Appreciate that. Cheers. Hello, Itsuki. Still looks pretty hard for human. Oh yeah, it absolutely is hard for human. This is not your get-rich-quick scheme for human against orc. Certainly not.
A player's forces are under attack.
And now the expansion has been held. The army is growing, 61 supply. There's heal scrolls. Mountain King could be level 3, but you got everything you need. Wolves are being stolen. That's why breakers are really good. If not for a frontline against the Tauren Chieftain. And we finally get to see level 2 clap this game. TC's about to die. There it goes. And GG will be called soon. And that's it. That's our 5 replays. So that is one way some of the Korean and Chinese human players are dealing with Orc currently. And what is Orc currently? Well, Orc currently is the Lin-style Farseer Headhunter build. Why is this build good? Well, one, it's extremely difficult. I said that at the start of the episode. It's extremely difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. But the reason why it's good is because it apparently works against Farseer Headhunters. And two, not a lot of Orcs have an optimized way of dealing with fast expansion. We saw many different attempts from Fly today, and we also saw a different attempt from Focus. We see a different attempt from Hitman earlier. We also see a different attempts from Lin. Every Orc player has a different idea. We even saw in chat many Orc players saying, you know, why doesn't he do this? This is what I do. This is why it's strong, because there's not a consensus from the Orc community on how do I deal with the fast expansion. So it's good for that reason. And we also see it's very strong if you're able to actually get the expansion up. If you're able to get it up cleanly, and you have good base builds, and you have good defensive play, you know when to invest your footmen and when not to. You know when to build your guard towers. You know how to build your guard towers. And you can macro cleanly, then it's a very strong strategy. Certainly not saying it's easy, though. Not saying it's easy. Yeah, fast expand in every matchup. Yeah, that's also a cool thing. If you start fast expanding against Orc, then you're fast expanding in 3, sometimes 4 matchups. Like Hawk, for instance, always fast expands in Human Mirror. A very difficult matchup to expand in. Human Mirror, it's a very aggressive matchup for both players. But he fast expands. So you imagine he fast expands against Orc. Now Hawk fast expands in all 4 matchups. And you get a lot of practice in fast expo. You get a lot of practice in defending your peasants and defending 2 bases at the same time and playing long macro games. So if you do this style in more than just the 2 matchups, get more practice at it. Why not try it out? Try it out. A cat's clawing at my door. One sec, let me open my door, and then if you guys got any questions, throw them in the chat. Let me open my door. One sec. Hey. All right. It's all right. Get in here. Here. All right, you guys got any questions? Ugh. Questions, comments, concerns? Some reality coming in that way, but that's all right. I had to open the door. Oh my god, cat. Jesus. Almost made me spill my tea. All right, come here. Come here. Come here. All right. How's the weather in Canada? The weather is currently... Oh, it's beautiful out. It's look at that. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. It's beautiful in Canada. Show your cat. Here's my cat. She doesn't like to be picked up. I'm not gonna pick her up. Yep, I guess she's just gonna stay here. Come on. Come on. Blade Grunt opener is pretty solid against fast expand as long as the blade has salves. Possibly. People used to fast expand against Blade Master, and yeah, just decently sized cat. Decently sized cat, you know? What if Orc scout early with Peon and go directly to the Expo creeping? This is, we've talked a lot about like what the Orc response should be this today, right? And people are saying like maybe Fly doesn't have the best answer to this and all that, which is fine. Maybe Fly doesn't have the best answer. That's why in these replays the human players were successful. Sure, I'll play devil's advocate there. But if that's true, if Fly is just bad against fast expansion, why did every series for every human player, when I downloaded all their replays, did they do it against every Orc? I don't know. Because if it's just Fly that's bad against fast expansion, then I don't see why they're fast expanding against people like Lin, against people like Soen, against people like Focus. But maybe Fly's answer is just bad. Maybe the strategy actually does not work. Who knows? But one thing I will say is I asked Hitman, what do you think the best counter is? And he, of course, gave a very in-depth answer of, it depends on what the human's opener is. It depends on what the Orc's opener is. And I said, okay, the human immediately goes for an expansion as the first creep camp, and the Orc player does a 2-burrow Farseer Headhunter build. And Hitman said the best build to that is to creep level 2 and then harass the expansion. He said creep level 2 and then go to the expansion. Is the best opener for the Orc against the fast expansion. So if Hitman is correct in saying that, then insta harass against the expansion actually isn't the best answer, apparently. It's better to have Chain Lightning and a couple more Headhunters before you go towards the expansion. Right? So your question is, if you Peon Scout and immediately run over there right away? Well, we saw almost every replay today, people running over there. Like on Echo Isles, for instance, there was a Peon Scout and Fly ran over right away. On Last Refuge, we didn't see it because there was a little bit of a fake out that game, but it does happen. Any other questions? You think the meta will stay this way? I certainly think Orcs will continue to go Farseer Headhunters, but I think humans are still figuring out what to do against Farseer Headhunters, which is why it was hard for me to find replays that they play the way I think people should play against Farseer Headhunters, which is playing one base. I said that at the start of the show, right? I said I don't think fast expanding's that good, but this is what all these humans are doing. I think playing one base is best, but I think the meta will change. I think the Korean and Chinese human players will try switching around what they're doing against Farseer Headhunters. I think Orc will continue doing what they're doing because it seems to be relatively successful right now. But we might see humans do different things all the time because they're just seeing what sticks, trying different stuff. Right, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. Have to keep an eye on what humans doing. What should you do versus Wyverns if you have time to adjust? Well, we saw that 7-minute guard tower in each base, and past that, definitely power build your blacksmith and just start pumping out rifles, and ideally have your base open so you can get into the back of your main base so that you can defend your peasants with those rifles and with your Archmage. But most important, to scout what their tech is if they're going for Wind Riders and have the guard towers on time in both your expansion and your main base. And then you can go Dragonhawks, you can go Flying Machines, you can go Rifles. I'm not sure what the consensus would be on the best counter to Masked Wind Riders. Of course, Dragonhawks, you need a lot of them. And if you're outnumbered, you can lose the fight, especially against things like Hex. With Flying Machines, you die to Bat Riders very easily. With Rifles, you die to Stomp very easily, right? So it's kind of pick your poison with what you think the best counter is to Wind Riders. If you can split your Flying Machines, those probably might be the best, but you have to consistently split them and micro them. Pretty neat, right? All right. That was a longer episode than I thought it would be. 3 hours. Next week, we are interviewing Starshape. We'll see what he thinks about Orc Against Human. How about that? He's an Orc player recently. We'll see what he thinks. We'll ask him. Because that's why I do these interviews, so I can ask players better than myself what they think the answers are to these things like these, and what they think about strategy, what they think about balance, what they think about the race they play, what they think about certain matchups. We were talking a lot to Thorzane about human against undead. I asked him what his thoughts were on human versus undead, and we talked about that for a while. That's why I have these interviews, guys. Because I don't always have all the answers. That's why we have these interviews. So next week will be an interview. Week after that will be Orc Day, then community replays on June 10th, and so on and so on and so on. So we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. That's it. Peace out.